The Age of the Mecha, Fists That Shatter Stars. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 301 Secret Trick. The strength of this electromagnetic force field is very high. In the cockpit, Li also showed a solemn expression. Sure enough, He Guangzi's second place in the heavenly rank was not in vain. This exquisite electromagnetic force field alone could defend against most conventional attacks of S-class mechas. His previous move had already used the 3.0 burst skill, and with his subtle and slightly divine Tiger Strike flow moves, it was enough to break the defense of the S-class mecha with bare hands. Alright, this is the best. His fighting spirit was even more vigorous. After this huge improvement, there was still such a strong opponent to practice with. How could it not make people excited? Immediately, the body of the Pluto Mecha leaped forward, and a gravitational pull suddenly pulled the Pluto Mecha and the Thunder King Mecha closer, and they were in front of him in the blink of an eye. The original gravitational characteristics could only be initiated by the Pluto Mecha itself, and it did not constitute a rare conceptual feature among the heavenly rank characteristics. When he can change the direction of gravity at will, he can make a small object produce great attraction at will. This is the initial concept of gravity. When it is further strengthened in the future, it is estimated that it can not only change the direction of gravity at will, but also use gravity as another kind of repulsion. It can also change the internal attraction and repulsion structure of deeper substances, and even go further, it can absorb time and space. These thoughts flashed through Li's mind. At the same time, the gravity of the Pluto Mecha pulled violently, and it also pulled the movement of the Thunder King Mecha slightly unbalanced. It came in front of the Pluto Mecha in an uncomfortable position, and saw that the chest was hit by the Pluto Mecha again. Boom! The blue electric light flashed at the place where the two sides touched. This punch was accompanied by a thunderous sound, and the Pluto Mecha and the Thunder King Mecha each retreated 7 or 8 steps backward. Step. 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 Every time he stepped on the ground, it was a heavy earthquake, and the entire sub-top floor of Zhenshin prison was also shaking. Not only the top floor this time, but also countless prisoners in the lower parts of Zhenshin prison were shaken and lost their footing, and fell down one after another. The two mechas obviously took on a force beyond their own limits in the confrontation, and had to use their feet to resolve it. In the cockpit, Li's heart moved slightly. The intensity of this electromagnetic force field is very high, and I have a lot of electromagnetic characteristics. I can observe and learn, and use them directly in the future. However, if I don't have a heavenly trick of the same type, I will probably not be able to break this electromagnetic force field. In this case, I will try my fourth Pluto Divine characteristic first. At the beginning of the fight, he used the absolute 0 degree and ice prison characteristics together to produce that kind of extremely powerful freezing effect, even freezing the space. Using one alone can also produce the effect of freezing space, but it is still slightly insufficient to further weaken the Thunder King Mecha. But the strange thing is that He Guangzi and Zhao He couldn't see it, thinking that it was a freezing characteristic with conceptual characteristics. But in fact, only Li knew that his ice prison characteristic and freezing characteristic both had conceptual characteristics. It was just because before the ice prison characteristic was activated, the freezing characteristic must be activated in advance to freeze the surrounding environment in order to play the ice prison characteristic and form an effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2. This is also a natural combination of heavenly positions. Although there are only 2 characteristics combined, the power is stronger than the heavenly position tricks of 5 or 6 heavenly position characteristics. It's a pity that this move is not mature yet and was directly broken by the heavenly position trick of the Thunder King Mecha. It can be seen that facing an opponent of He Guangzi's level, although his conceptual characteristics have unexpected effects, far exceeding the conventional high-level heavenly positions, it is still difficult to quickly gain a victory. He Guangzi's ability to deal with incomprehensive combat qualities have already opened up a huge level with ordinary opponents. In this regard, Li chose to use the fourth Pluto Divine characteristic, which is the spatial characteristic. One of his other huge benefits this time is the innate conceptual characteristic of space. Although he had also obtained spatial characteristics from the Gaia Mecha before, he only had one divine gene after all. Therefore, although he could obtain the blessing of the Gaia Mecha, he could not form a separate move alone. He had to combine it with other moves to play a stronger role. But now that he had the power of Pluto's foundation, he naturally generated special characteristics belonging to the Pluto sequence, and he had obtained a total of 4. In addition to the one before, with the amazing size of the Pluto Mecha now, it was enough to form a separate special characteristic move. At this moment, as Li Yi's mind moved, the Pluto Mecha suddenly leaped forward, and a giant tiger shape flashed outside the body, still in the Tiger Pound style. Boom! The Thunder King Mecha also had the posture of the 13 Thunder Fists, and collided directly with the Pluto Mecha head-on. Suddenly, Guangxi's scalp in the cockpit was numb instantly, and a sense of horror emerged. He immediately controlled the Thunder King Mecha to flash to the side. He actually completely gave up the state of attacking forward and dodged with all his heart. At the same time, on the path that the Thunder King Mecha was dodging, a huge black crack suddenly appeared out of thin air, and then it twisted and turned into a super space crack with a diameter of 70 meters and a length of 7 to 8 kilometers. It was not until it extended to the border of the Henshin prison that the space crack stopped spreading. And the part of the mountain covered by the space crack around the entire sub-top floor was directly cleared, like a picture wiped clean by an eraser, and a whole protruding mountain peak was directly missing. You know, the mountain in this Henshin prison is not an ordinary mountain, but a huge condensed Pluto, and its hardness is not much less than the armor of the S-class Mecha. But in an instant, such a large piece was directly missing? A mountain peak with a width of 200 to 300 meters was gone just like that? Hiss. In the cockpit, Guangxi opened his mouth wide. Are the spatial characteristics of the celestial god sequence so powerful? Or are all the blessings of Pluto's foundation reflected in this special characteristic? Zhao He on the other side couldn't hold back his expression at all. He couldn't help but exclaimed, a genius, such a powerful special characteristic, with only one characteristic, is comparable to a combination of more than 7 heavenly characteristics. The quality of this batch of special characteristics obtained by Li Yi is definitely S-level quality conceptual characteristics, otherwise, it can't explain why this pure special characteristic trick is so powerful. It's a blessing for mankind and the Federation to have such a son. Old He is right. I really underestimated such a young man with an infinitely bright future. I am indeed old, my eyesight is not as good as before, and my mentality is more conservative. Perhaps, with this high-quality special characteristic, Li Yi can participate in the exploration of the time ruins. But there is no rush. There are still several years before the opening time. During this period, we can make some plans. On the other side, Li Yi was also somewhat surprised at the effect of his move and the crazy absorption of divinity. He didn't expect that he would be exhausted just by activating all the special characteristics in his body. Fortunately, he still had the 2 trump cards of 3.1 and 3.2 burst skills, which could hold on for a while. This move is too powerful, and I didn't hide the divine fluctuations of this move just now. Commander, he discovered the clues and avoided it directly. Now that the 4 conceptual characteristics have been tried, it's time to try the heavenly trick I conceived. Thinking of this, he immediately said, Commander, seeing that the time is almost up, next, I will try to use the heavenly trick I initially conceived. I can't predict the power of this move. Please, be careful and don't get seriously injured. As soon as these words came out, Guangxi, who was still in shock just now, suddenly felt his scalp tingling. Don't get seriously injured? Listen, this kid is so crazy. It's only been a short time, and he has conceived a heavenly trick? My goodness, I just wanted to see how you have improved at the beginning. Guangxi was holding his breath and his heart after almost losing his mind with his special characteristics just now. How could he be so embarrassed in front of the juniors? He forced himself to cheer up and laughed loudly. It just so happens that I still have a lot of my heavenly skills that I haven't shown yet. Well, I'll let you see how powerful my skills that I have honed for thousands of years are. Chapter 302 Arrival. Guangxi did what he said and started to attack. The palm of the Thunder King Knight once again condensed high-intensity divine energy. Light purple, dark blue, and cyan blue, 3 colors of electric arcs quickly gathered. With crackling sounds, these divinities shrank smaller and smaller in the palm of the Thunder King mech. It seems that this is another of Li Guangxi's proud skills, the technique of compressing divinity. However, what is the relationship between this compression of divinity and his heavenly tricks? Li Yi glanced through the detection system, and couldn't tell what kind of heavenly trick Guangxi was going to use to kill. He didn't look at it anymore, and began to brew his own heavenly trick. Then, He activated the 3.1 burst skill to increase the endurance of his body for this trick. He also has the 3.2 version of the burst skill, so he doesn't need to use all his strength at this moment. Soon, his skin quickly turned red, which was a sign of rapid and high temperature blood flow in the body. When he opened his mouth to breathe, white steam would spread out of his body. As his physical body continued to strengthen, the effect of conventional explosive skills on him continued to weaken. However, even so, under the urging of such a high-power divinity, his state still reached the peak. Then, the Pluto Mecha took the tiger strike flow starting posture of a thin tiger going down the mountain, squatting slightly, sinking his shoulders and pulling his back. This huge fuselage armor also produced a deep sound like metal colliding with the movement of the Pluto Mecha's body. As the thin tiger went down the mountain, the divinity outside the Pluto Mecha began to gather continuously, forming a huge, crouching tiger phantom ready to jump down the mountain at any time. Then, he began to combine the power of characteristics. Freezing, ice prison, gravity, and space. These four characteristics are the conceptual characteristics that the Pluto Mecha can directly bless, and the heavenly tricks naturally have to focus on these. Next, he will add some auxiliary characteristics that cannot be blessed by the Pluto Mecha, but the quality of the characteristics is not bad, and they match his next idea. For example, the two characteristics of deformation and super-elasticity have been greatly strengthened. Soon, under the blessing of freezing and ice prison characteristics, the color of the giant tiger's phantom changed from yellow to white, and it turned into a gorgeous white tiger. Ayo! With a roar, the big white tiger opened its mouth wide, and a pair of sharp jaw teeth emerged, with a blessing of space characteristics, very fierce. Under the deformation characteristics, the body of the big white tiger became more and more solid inside and out. Even though Li Yi had not yet mastered the essence of the divine realm, he still made the big white tiger solid like a real object, just like the S-level gorgeous tiger he and Zhang Shengfeng and others encountered in the ruins of the earth. Then, the big white tiger shook its body suddenly, and its huge body of more than 200 meters suddenly broke away from the Pluto Mecha and leaped forward. Every time it stepped out, the ground was silent, and there seemed to be no feedback at the material level. But at this moment, Zhao Yi, who was watching, could clearly see that the space rift that had just been restored was continuing to vibrate. And it seemed that it could be torn apart again at any time. His heart moved slightly. This move is a mixture of real and fake. Just in terms of technique, it is quite advanced. At the same time, when the big white tiger was brewing, He Guangzi, who had already prepared a big move and had been patiently waiting for Li Yi to make a move, also released his own heavenly move, the Thunder Dragon Flash. The Thunder King Mecha pushed the giant palm, and the long condensed divine energy bomb in the palm flew out rapidly. This divine energy bomb seemed small, but at the moment of flying out, it was split into two into four, and split dozens of times in an instant. In the blink of an eye, these extremely condensed divine energy bombs gathered into a magnificent thunder dragon, roaring out. This thunder dragon is 300 or 400 meters long. Although its face is not as vivid and agile as Li Yi's big white tiger, it is uniquely majestic and has its own terrifying divine power. As the blue and purple scale snake body trembled, a super loud noise like muffled thunder came out. Rumble. In the blink of an eye, the white tiger and the thunder dragon collided, immediately triggering an avalanche like super ice tide. The two were seen grabbing each other with their front paws, in a stalemate, repeatedly pulling back and forth. In the pulling, countless thunder snakes burst out, and countless ice tides pushed outward. The air was filled with scorching arcs and frost flowers. In just a moment, the entire sub-top floor was covered with ice tides and lightning, except for the upgraded and resealed upgrade pool. These two divine beasts, only a few stalemates, caused such a terrifying environmental change. It can be seen that after the stage of divine refinement, the mystery of its moves is more sophisticated than the pure destruction brought by the divine Mecha. Zhao Yi, on his side, naturally controlled the fire dragon Mecha to control the external divine shield to resist the aftermath. He exclaimed, "These two are amazing for their moves involving divine will. They are only at the heavenly stage, but they can pull off such moves." On the field, the stalemate between the two never ended, and they cleverly maintained a balance. After a minute, it gradually dissipated. After a while, the two divine beasts disappeared. In addition to the drastic changes in the surrounding environment, the stalemate between the two just now ended just like that. Li Yu did not expect that his full-strength move could only be in a stalemate with He Guangzi. It seems that although his move has fully mobilized various conceptual characteristics and has the blessing of the perfect level divine control skills, the power is several times better than the space tear just now, but it is still slightly inferior to He Guangzi's ultimate move. Sure enough, without the blessing of subtle fighting skills and 3.2 burst skills, his actual defense-breaking power is still slightly inferior to He Guangzi. He thought to himself, it seems that my speech just now was a bit arrogant. I even told Commander He to be careful not to get seriously injured. This second strongest Xian Wei is indeed worthy of his reputation. After using this ultimate move and revealing most of my trump cards, I still could only tie with him. On the other side, He Guangzi was also a little surprised. He thought to himself, this is the second to last strongest Xian Wei move of mine. But I can only tie with him. This kid is really perverted. I'll think of an excuse to end the fight later, otherwise I'll lose face. Fortunately, just as He Guangzi was about to say some polite words, Lu Yansheng drove the Aquaman mech and broke into the second top floor. My goodness, just when I was entering and exiting the passage below, I felt your earth-shaking formation. I thought Hangser in this Henshin prison had escaped successfully and was rioting. What's the situation now? Where did this high-level A-class mecha come from? Why haven't I seen it before? As soon as Lu Yansheng flew into the second top floor, he saw the drastic change in the environment and shouted in surprise. On the public channel, Lu Yansheng's loud voice like a broken gong kept shaking, and several people felt that the sound was extremely harsh. Zhao He explained, this is the upgraded Pluto Mecha, and it was just sparring with Lao He. Lu Yansheng didn't believe it at all. Deputy Director Zhao, are you making fun of me? Li Yu's Pluto Mecha? Isn't it C-class? How could it be upgraded from C-class to A-class in an instant? And can it fight with Lao He to such an extent? Chapter 303 Thoing. Zhao He smiled and said, whether you believe it or not, this is indeed Li Yu's Pluto Mecha. Following Zhao He's voice, Li Yu also greeted him, Commander Lu. Although Li Yu had not come into direct contact with Lu Yansheng in many battles, he often heard of this powerful man who was the first in the heavenly rank. He knew that he had amazing combat power and outstanding achievements. He had killed through the mecha formation of the two clan many times alone and defeated various top A-class mecha masters. He was quite famous. Compared with the relatively low-key He Guangzi, this one was even more famous for his flamboyant, hot-tempered, straightforward and big-mouthed temper. Although he was slightly inferior to He Guangzi in commanding operations, he was a top expert in leading troops to charge and in various close combat scenes. He also fought alone with the only S-class mecha of the two clan and won. Not only that, 18 years ago, when the border star was lost and the battle line was dragged to Cheyenne Hangstar, it was this man who turned the tide, led the troops to fight out of the siege, withstood the pressure, and finally waited for the rescue of Lin Zongzi. Such a person is indeed worthy of Li Yi's admiration. At this moment, Lu Yansheng immediately recognized Li Yi's voice and said in amazement, C-class mecha can really be upgraded to high-level A-class in one go? Awesome, you are so fierce. In other words, the big noise just now was caused by the upgrade pool upgrading the Pluto Mecha? I didn't expect that the Pluto Sequence Mecha can also be blessed on the moon. It can be seen that there are other unusual mysteries in the Celestial God sequence. I have to find an upgrade pool on another planet to try the effect. He quickly made up a series of processes and reasons. Although the surrounding area was covered with ice tides everywhere and the sky was full of frost. However, due to He Guangzi's ultimate move, the rainstorm thunder dragon broke, the arc scorched and pierced the surrounding environment, and the surrounding frost dissipated quickly. When Lu Yansheng arrived, the surrounding environment had changed greatly, but it was also recovering from the peak of the change. Therefore, he misjudged the power of Li Yi's ice and snow move. He mistakenly thought that the huge movement before was mainly caused by the upgrade. The changes in the surrounding environment represent the performance of the Pluto Mecha's test move. In Lu Yansheng's cognition, although Li Yi's mecha upgrade increased greatly, in terms of strength, he was mostly a conventional high-level Xian Wei, and was far from the level of the top 10 Xian Wei. Although the performance was amazing, Lu Yansheng was not that surprised because he knew Li Yi's several battle records before. When Zhao He heard this, he was about to continue to explain Li Yi's combat performance just now, when He Guangzi suddenly sent a private message, Deputy Director Zhao, since Lao Lu doesn't believe it, then let's not explain it to him, let him make a fool of himself. How about it, Zhao He was startled when he heard this, and he subconsciously wanted to refuse. But listening to the hoarse voice and questioning tone on the public channel, he changed his mind and thought, that's right, since you think I'm making fun of you, then I have to make fun of you for real. Thinking of this, he immediately smiled and replied to He Guangzi's private chat, okay, in this case. Then we won't explain to Lao Lu. But how can you guarantee that Li Yu won't explain? He Guangzi said confidently. Once Lao Lu has made up his mind, it's difficult for him to change his mind. I just need to lead a rhythm and take this topic away. Zhao He also had a more amusing mentality at this time. He was so surprised that he almost lost his composure just now. If he kept the situation secret, no one knew what ridiculous conclusions Lao Lu would continue to say. Apart from anything else, just now, Lao Lu misjudged two things, and he could use them to laugh at him later. Before Li Yu could speak, He Guangzi immediately said, since everyone is here, let's go and interrogate Heng Suer as soon as possible, try to get it done quickly, and advance the Star Clan's offensive plan as soon as possible. After hearing what He Guangzi said, everyone naturally had no objection, and immediately drove the Divine Mecha to Heng Suer's detention area. Heng Suer's detention area is on the 13th floor underground in the southern division of Zhensuo prison. Below this floor, the prisoners are basically strong men above the high-level A level. Some strong men have intelligence value, and some strong men can be extracted from divinity as the source of divinity for the upgrade pool. At this moment, the four mechas quickly entered the exclusive Mecha channel and went down all the way. After arriving at the 13th floor underground, a vast and boundless ice prison appeared in front of everyone. I saw that the ice prison was surrounded by huge ice cones, ice spikes, and icebergs like ice flowers. There was no flat ice surface around, all of which were various ice spikes with various strange ice thorns. These ice thorns are hard to exist in reality, but in this ice prison, they are as common as cacti in the desert. Soon, everyone arrived at a target location, a huge dark blue iceberg. Hengsel's tall body was hidden in the innermost layer of the iceberg, like a small dot on the iceberg. He Guangzi introduced, the ice prison in the god-suppressing prison automatically carries a powerful power to weaken a divinity, which can greatly weaken the divinity of the strongest. According to normal time, if Heng Suo comes for another 2 or 3 hours, the divinity in his body will begin to revive and unfreeze. Lao Lu and Li Yu have both mastered many powerful properties of freezing. Your task later is very simple, which is to pay close attention to Heng Suo's condition and prevent him from exploding and escaping. After all, this is a top-level strongest person. His physical body alone can produce extremely powerful destructive power. If it weren't for General Lin's use of the characteristics of the cosmic light, coupled with clever arrangements, to defeat a minority with more numbers, I'm afraid he would not be captured, and this interrogation is estimated to take a long time. It will take at least several days to get enough information, so you two, be sure to take turns to keep an eye on him. Li Yu nodded slightly. Lu Yansheng patted his chest generously and said, I'll take care of this. Li Yu can just check for omissions and make up for the deficiencies. There's no need to rotate all the time. After all, he's young. Even if his strength is comparable to that of a high-level heavenly stage, without a heavenly stage trick, he may not be able to completely defend against a top-level extreme power. He Guangzi chuckled and said directly to Li Yi, what do you think, Li Yi? Li Yi had no objection. Since Lu Yansheng took on so much responsibility, he wouldn't directly say that I could do it. After all, he wasn't sure how strong a top-level extreme power was in his physical state. What's more, there was another genuine extreme power, Zhao Yi, who was driving a Mecha. The reason why they were so strict against Heng Suo was naturally because they were afraid that Heng Suo would show some amazing combination of characteristics and flee directly instead of fighting them head-on. Once that happened, they would naturally have to go through more trouble. After all, a Mecha is big, but once it faces a small but amazingly powerful person, the battle situation is not something that can be covered by the usual comparison of strength and weakness. The simplest one is Zhang Shengfeng, who was troubled by Dan Chenli's amazing mobility when facing him in his physical state. Therefore, Li Yu said directly, I can do it. I can also help Commander Lu later. Lu Yansheng smiled slightly, it's not necessary to help, just do the task of checking for omissions and filling in the gaps. You are now at least a high-level A-level Mecha combat power. You should have some confidence and be more confident, understand? Li Yu nodded and said, okay. He Guangzi and Zhao He couldn't help laughing. Then, He Guangzi coughed lightly, stopped laughing, and said seriously, "Old Lu, I will start to thaw Hang Su'er from now on. You must keep an eye on him." As he said that, the Thunder King Mecha directly sent out a burning electric feature to quickly thaw the iceberg in front. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304 Interrogation. Crackle, clackle. The iceberg melted, revealing Hang Su'er's unique face and body. He was wearing an orange-yellow Star Tribe uniform, had a dark pointed face, broad arms, and was more than 3 meters tall. He slowly opened his eyes, revealing a pair of bright yellow oval pupils. Hang Su'er did not make any violent movements, but just adjusted from a prone position to a cross-legged position. He was surprisingly relaxed, as if he had anticipated this situation. He calmly took a cross-legged position, and then spoke lightly, "1 gold machine and 3 silver machines. Yes, this is used to interrogate me, which means that the war has entered the halftime stage. You have won most of the time, but we haven't completely lost, right?" He spoke the language of the human side, not the common language of the aliens. Obviously, Hang Su'er has also learned the language and civilization of humans. However, the current scene was somewhat beyond the expectations of He Guangzi and others. He had thought that Hang Su'er would suddenly attack or run away at the moment of thawing, but he didn't expect that Hang Su'er would take such a comfortable posture, as if he was not afraid of the current encirclement at all. This guy, isn't he too calm? Even if he is the top-level strongest, he shouldn't be in such a passive situation and not panic at all, right? Moreover, the divinity-weakening power of the entire 13th layer of the ice prison is extremely powerful. Li Yi and his group, who were driving mechas above the high level of A, felt a little uncomfortable. What's more, Hang Su'er in front of him was in a physical state. He had obviously weakened most of his divinity, but he was still so arrogant. Seeing this, Lu Yansheng solemnly sent a message to Li Yi, "Don't relax your spirit. A big war may happen at any time. The physical bodies of the Star Clan are not weak by nature. Maybe he has some trump cards. You have just been promoted and you are not experienced enough. If you can stop them, stop them. If you can't, use the divine energy cannon. Don't be afraid of mistakes." This kid was beaten by a group of S-class mechas for several minutes, and was finally dealt with by General Lin. This shows that his physical state is definitely top-notch. Maybe he really has the physical strength to break the defense of A-class high-level mechas. Li Yi didn't say much, just replied, "I know." Although Lu Yansheng misunderstood his actual combat power, Li Yi was happy to do so, lest Hang Su'er really had some hidden tricks later. If this guy falls, it is better for the tall man to take the top first. After all, he is a top-level powerful person, very close to a demigod, and should not be underestimated. He Guangzi, on his side, did not want to take the opportunity to play tricks on Lu Yansheng. At this moment, Hang Su'er's state did arouse his suspicion, which quickly dispelled his relatively relaxed mentality. Originally, for a strong man of Hang Su'er's level, ordinary restrictions and blockades would be difficult to work. Including other common divine equipment, it is not easy to restrict such a top strong man. In other words, even if there are such restriction equipment, there are basically few that can be used against Hang Su'er in the hands of humans. So this is why they immediately put Hang Su'er into the God-suppressing prison and strengthen the freezing. Only with the help of the God-suppressing prison can they calmly interrogate the top strong. In a different environment, it would be good if he didn't run away. He Guangzi's mind turned, and he had already considered it, and immediately said, "Hang Su'er, I have always heard that you are the strongest gold level of the new generation of the Star Clan, and you are only 1 or 2 steps away from the demigod. In order to further step into the demigod, you took the lead in planning this invasion war. Is this true?" The voice came out from the Thunder King Mecha. Hang Su'er smiled faintly and said, "Yes, that's right. Yes, you are very straightforward," He Guangzi said in surprise. He Guangzi said, "Then, what role did the ancestor of the Star Clan play in this operation?" Hang Su'er said, "No comment." He Guangzi's eyes moved slightly, and he smiled. "Then do you know that your ancestor has been captured by us?" Hang Su'er said indifferently, "Captive? What's the use of capturing a mere clone?" He Guangzi narrowed his eyes and said lightly, Then do you know that the ancestor of the star clan we captured was captured from the Earth, not from the battlefield on the border star? Hearing this, Hang Suo's eyes moved slightly. Captured on Earth. That's interesting. Your performance is worthy of admiration. It's a pity that it's just one of his clones, and it's still useless. Useless? You are really good at bragging. Do you know that we have wiped out at least 2,000 sea level and above mecha divisions of your star clan? As long as the ancestor is still there, killing a mere mecha division is nothing to worry about. The three people on the side, while listening attentively to the content, were also staring at Hang Suo, to prevent Hang Suo from suddenly attacking and quickly escaping. Hearing this, they were all shocked. The one on Earth is also a clone? Is Hang Suo bluffing, or is it true? Li Yu had seen quite a few Star Clan members before, and had already formed his own judgments about their brain waves and facial expression patterns. At this moment, with the help of the enhanced detection system to identify, he quickly determined that what Hang Suo had just said was true. He Guangzi continued, Hang Suo, since you know a lot about the situation of your ancestor, where's his real body? Tell us. If you tell it well, we may not torture you. Hang Suo sneered, you humans are really interesting. Should I tell you or not, just to avoid being tortured? I have lived for more than 600 years. What storms have I not seen? I can tell you with confidence that even if you grind me to ashes here, I will not frown. Everyone was a little surprised at Hang Suo's toughness. Li Yu's heart moved slightly, and he said directly on the public channel, everyone, this Hang Suo, I think this Hang Suo has also mastered the ability of clones, so he is so fearless and calm. This view was also recognized by several people. He Guangzi nodded and said, yes, it must be so, otherwise it is impossible to explain Hang Suo's tough performance. In fact, based on the information I got from Qiao Dong before, I seriously suspect that the three brothers Hang Suo, Hang Zilong and Hang Tulong are actually the same person. Lu Yancheng frowned and said, then we can't get any information from this clone? Isn't Lao Zhang hopeless now? He Guangzi said, don't worry, even if it is a clone, there is a distinction between primary and secondary autonomous consciousness. Judging from the strength shown by Hang Suo, even if he is not the main body, he is a very important secondary body. If he is destroyed, it must be very painful. Li Yu said at this time, Commander He, can you scan and identify Hang Suo's brain waves? He Guangzi nodded and said, yes, I can scan and sense his brain waves and confirm various types of information. How? Li Yu said, if possible, Commander He can copy and transmit to me a copy of the brain wave image you sensed. My deciphering ability is not bad, and maybe I can get more information from it, although he also has the ability of microelectric induction. He is a Pluto mecha after all, and this characteristic ability has no effect, unlike He Guangzi's Thor sequence, which can directly sense and obtain more abundant radio wave details through Hangzer's physical blockade. He Guangzi was surprised and said, your deciphering ability is not the ability to decipher language. How can you even decipher brain waves? Are you serious? Li Yu smiled and said, recently, my deciphering ability has improved slightly, and I have also studied brain waves, so I can give it a try. Chapter 305 Stars. Since Li Yu said so, He Guangzi did not refuse. He immediately activated his microelectric characteristics and used his detection system to convert the active brain waves of Hang Suo into a graph and transmit it to the public frequency. Although the other two were not good at interpreting this kind of brain waves, as top-level senior mecha masters, they still understood the different information modes of the detection system. When they saw the complex brain wave data on the page, their scalps were slightly numb. The brainwave data graph of normal humans is generally like the night sky in the industrial age, with sparse stars. Only the brain waves of the strong will continue to be active and improve, slowly evolving from stars to stars, brilliant and glorious. The brain waves of the top strongest people in the human world, such as Lin Jianlong, Qin Longchuan, Zhang Shengfeng, etc., are this kind of abstract structure of stars. However, no one expected that the brain wave structure of Hang Suo was even more complicated, and the tiny gaps were filled with stars, which seemed to be more complicated than those of Lin Jianlong and others. Since the top humans are not as complex as them, it is conceivable that this brain wave structure is obviously a racial difference. Wow, the brain data of the Star Clan is so complex. Lu Yancheng was surprised. I have never seen such a complex brain wave structure in my life. Zhao He also nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, according to the intelligence sent by Qiao Dong before, The Star Clan is essentially a special star-alien life form, which is naturally close to the source of divinity. It was not until they were given wisdom factors by their god of creation that they gradually transformed from divine creatures to intelligent creatures. I guess his complex brain waves are probably due to this artificial filling of wisdom factors, Lu Yansheng said, but the strange thing is that this Star Clan does not show an average IQ higher than that of us humans, right? On the contrary, it is even worse, Zhao Hui guessed. Maybe the racial talent of the Star Clan is not reflected in wisdom. Li Yu listened to the communication between the two and deciphered the brain waves of the Star Clan while referring to the ones he had identified and deciphered in the past. Originally, conventional deciphering capabilities naturally could not do this. But as his deciphering ability was perfected, he had a deeper understanding of the various information patterns of the detection system. Therefore, brainwave deciphering was just a more complex language deciphering for him. In essence, brain waves are also a kind of language. However, because Heng Suer's brain waves were too complex, at present, only his surface consciousness could be deciphered. And the efficiency was not fast. Fortunately, He Guangzi also roughly understood Li Yu's thinking, and began to ask some irrelevant questions, but the content of the intelligence that humans had already obtained, and kept transmitting Heng Suer's brain wave information to the public frequency for Li Yu to decipher. About 10 minutes later, Li Yu said, "Let me make a few conclusions. The Heng Suer in front of me is indeed a clone." He Guangzi's eyes moved slightly. Then, who is the main body? Is it Heng Tulong or Heng Zilong? Li Yu said, "Neither, it's Wu Zhibo." "What? It's this guy." The three were a little surprised. Especially He Guangzi, who never thought that Heng Suer's main body was Wu Zhibo, who had been physically destroyed. However, the other party is so confident. Could it be that Wu Zhibo is not really dead? He Guangzi paused, then chuckled. It's still so dark under the lamp. It turns out that the opposition and the pro-war faction of the Star Clan are all Heng Suer. If so, then Wu Zhibo is not dead. Li Yu shook his head and said, "No, most likely he is dead. According to what Chief he asked just now, half of Heng Suer's confidence is a disguise. Maybe he has become the main body." A thoughtful look flashed across Li Guangzi's eyes. "Interesting, that's right. If Heng Suer and Wu Zhibo are the main body of each other, then it's no wonder that there was a conflict between the god of creation and the resurrectionist behind Wu Zhibo. After all, if a body really has to fight between two superpowers, it is difficult to maintain it for a long time. So, what is the relationship between Heng Suer and the god of creation of the Star Clan?" Li Yu shook his head and said, "This point has not been deciphered yet. Chiefly, please ask some more details." "Okay." At the same time when the interrogation was continuing, Lin Jianlong, Qin Longchuan, Duan Mushong and other human strongest people are now gathering outside the alien Stargate, waiting for the human mechanics to transform the Stargate. There are two major directions for the transformation work. The first is to modify the territory of the Stargate, which requires a space-time expert with a deep understanding of the Stargate and a dozen skilled mechanics to carry out the work. The second is to transform the station's starships around the Stargate, so that they are connected to the Stargate and built into a Stargate bridge fortress, which can accommodate the human defense force. It is worth mentioning that the human mechanical transformation technology insists on the path of independent research and development. Therefore, although the overall technological level is not as good as that of the aliens, it is more solid. When achieving these engineering goals, it can complete the streamlined transformation more efficiently. However, in half a day, the outer area of the Stargate, which looks like several moons, has been transformed into a huge Stargate bridge fortress. Around its periphery, thick steel bars and large pillars made of snowflake divine materials can be seen, which are particularly spectacular with the flickering glow of the Stargate. Of course, this is just a rough embryo, which is equivalent to adding a large frame. In the future, it will be necessary to fill in various barriers to defend against various types of radiation and particle weapons. However, for now, it is enough to support the entry and exit of the human army. The reason why such a great deal of effort is to build such a bridgehead is naturally to use this Stargate as the core to form the first forward fortress of human beings against the star race. In this way, the center of the subsequent war will also be pushed forward from the border star to the alien Stargate, and the human front will advance a whole star field. Such a step is quite important. Not only that, All kinds of main ship-level starships under emergency construction will also go through this stargate to go deep into the scorching star field until the star race is completely suppressed and the major concern is eliminated. At this moment, seeing the surrounding construction work in full swing, Lin Jianlong scanned the surroundings with a panoramic view of the Xianzhou Mecha, and suddenly felt emotional and said, "I never thought that in my lifetime I could actually wait for the day to counterattack the Star Clan." But Qin Longchuan frowned and said, "Old Lin, this is a great thing for us humans. Why don't you seem particularly happy when you hear it?" "Well, I'm worried that once we take the initiative to enter the aliens' territory, we may not welcome victory, but a concentrated counterattack from all alien races." Chapter 306, Trend. Qin Longchuan was stunned when he heard this. "Didn't you claim that you had undercover agents outside the Star Clan to keep watch? Why are you afraid now?" Lin Jianlong shook his head and said, "After all, our understanding of aliens is not that deep. Now the direction of the ship is in your and my hands. If the ship hits reef and all mankind perishes, how can we not worry?" This answer was not only asked to Lin Jianlong himself, but also seemed to be asked to Qin Longchuan. Qin Longchuan paused, then said, "Your worries are indeed not unreasonable, but you have to understand that we only have 1,000 years. If we can't do anything in this 1,000 years, we will be doomed. This is 1,000 years. According to the deciphering and confirmation of experts from all sides, it is an extremely certain limit. We will reach the limit in our lifetime. So, old Lin, there is no need for you to be sad and worried here. We should kill our way out of the past and make sufficient preparations to deal with the disaster 1,000 years later." Lin Jianlong laughed and said, "Don't worry, I'm not as exaggerated as you think. There is no such thing as being sad and worried. In fact, according to the latest intelligence, the Star Clan was invaded by us in one fell swoop. The most likely ones to respond are probably the Xianjing clan in the Brilliant Star Domain, or the Feather Hunter clan in the Hunter Star Domain." "Feather Hunter clan? Isn't this the Golden Race?" Qin Longchuan pondered. "When I was traveling around here decades ago, I fought against one of their top S-class masters. He was indeed incredibly powerful, with all kinds of superb hunting skills and all kinds of wonderful divine equipment, but isn't the Hunter Star Domain quite far from the Scorching Star Domain? How come they can reach out so far?" Lin Jianlong said, "According to investigations, the 1Z consortium of the Feather Hunter clan sent strong men into our Silent Star Domain half a year ago to investigate the situation at the Xianxu ruins." "What?" Qin Longchuan narrowed his eyes, with a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. "The news of the Xianxu ruins was leaked," Lin Jianlong said. "If nothing unexpected happened, it was most likely leaked by the True Saint Church." "Are you sure?" "Well, according to the latest investigation of the True Saint Church, the sponsor behind the True Saint Church is most likely the 1Z consortium of the Feather Hunter clan." "How can a mere consortium be so powerful?" "This consortium is not ordinary. It has basically mastered most of the scientific and technological technologies within the Feather Hunter clan. For example, the starship technology of the Star Clan was also purchased from the 1Z consortium of the Feather Hunter clan. I even suspect that behind this 1Z consortium, there are also some extremely powerful resurrectors hidden. As for this resurrector, I think there is most likely some relationship between him and the resurrectors we have encountered and discovered so far." Qin Longchuan frowned and condensed his brows into the shape of a, "These resurrectors are really fucking troublesome. Why didn't they revive earlier or later, but waited until there were only 1,000 years left for the disaster to come here and stir up trouble?" Lin Jianlong said, "Maybe they were forced to revive. After all, they are not completely dead yet, and the methods that work may not work a second time. Of course, there is another possibility, that is, they must be revived at this point in time to be active." Qin Longchuan snorted, "An old man who refuses to die is a thief. When I break through to the demigod level, the first thing I will do is to kill those sinister resurrectors." Lin Jianlong said, "Then you should get promoted quickly. You have waited for so many years, but you are still a little short of it." "What is it?" Qin Longchuan was embarrassed when he heard this. He laughed and said, "Wait a little longer. This time when we march into the Star Clan, I'll need you to help me and cover for me." Lin Jianlong sighed, "Okay, I just hope you can really be worthy of this pillar." Qin Longchuan, "By the way, did you pass the news about Zhang Shengfang to Yan? This Yan is the only strongest person among humans who focuses on the soul characteristics, and the only female strongest." Lin Jianlong shook his head. "I passed it, but the message hasn't been replied yet. If there is no reply after a while, I can only send people to the border ruins to find her. It's a pity. If Yan's existence is not too special and it is easy to fall, we can at least leave another gold-level Star Clan member in this pursuit. This pursuit lasted for several hours. Under the influence of the cosmic light characteristics, they killed all the way to the area near the hinterland of the Star Clan, and killed several silvers and 1 gold in a row. The results were quite good. However, since they were not familiar with the territory of the Star Clan, in order to avoid being trapped in the pursuit of the enemy, they had to interrupt the pursuit and choose to return. Lin Jianlong said, individual gold level ones will not have much impact. The key is the few strong men who control the time book. I have marked them. Later, when they think they are stable, they become careless and disperse. We will attack them and kill them one by one. Qin Longchuan's eyes lit up when he heard this. Okay, I have heard about the time book of the Star Clan for a long time. It has the magic of recording time. It is one of the copies of the secret book of time. If we can get it, we may be able to get the core technology of the Star Clan. As a powerful Silver Clan, the Star Clan naturally has its own divine technology inherited and developed from the divine civilization. This technology is artificial stars. The Star Clan, who mastered this technology, is the core reason why they can cultivate a large number of silver level and above Star Clan strongmen. After all, as a man-made race, the Star Clan has developed to such a scale and strength in just tens of thousands of years. It does not rely on natural evolution, but on the catalysis of the Star Clan ancestor behind the scenes. The two who captured a large number of star tribes and obtained a lot of information also knew what the star tribe relied on to achieve such a short-term huge prosperity and evolve so many silver-level strongmen. After all, the fertility of the star tribe is very low, far from being comparable to that of humans. Speaking of this, Qin Longchuan also sighed. I didn't expect that the life system of the star tribe is so wonderful that it actually needs to rely on digesting small artificial stars to further transform. It can't reach the silver level just by relying on divinity. This kind of artificial star is naturally not a celestial body. At most, it is equivalent to an artificial star with a diameter of 100 meters. After a star tribe gradually breaks through to a certain limit using divinity, it can begin to contact the artificial star and digest it, so that their life essence will transform. Otherwise, with a star tribe's congenitally incomplete body, it is impossible to use divinity to continue to evolve. Only a small number of gifted people can continue to upgrade to the gold level and demigod level. Moreover, a large number of rare divine minerals are needed to make artificial stars. However, this mineral is rare, and the star tribe is overexploiting, and the resources are also facing exhaustion. This is also another core reason why the young and strong of the Star Clan had to mobilize the entire population to attack humans in order to make further progress. They are not amazing, but they were designed. The god of creation of the Star Clan may have deliberately created such a problematic race, Lin Jianlong said in a deep voice. Qin Longchuan nodded slightly after hearing this. No matter what the reason is, the Star Clan, this tiger in the bed, must be eliminated as soon as possible. As for the Feather Hunter Clan or the Silver Clan Sky Crystal Clan, there is nothing else to do but to stop killing with killing. In his words, the strong murderous aura is not concealed at all. Lin Jianlong smiled immediately. Don't worry, wait for them to relax first. I estimate that in 3 or 4 months, we can go deep into the Scorching Star region in a big way. During this period, we should train the troops as soon as possible, settle the rear, and obtain enough intelligence to confirm the specific strategy for subsequent operations. Chapter 307 Wanhu. The interrogation has been going on for several hours. Heng Su'er has not made any extra movements. He just sat quietly in one place, answering He Guangzi's questions in a disjointed manner. His answers are sometimes irrelevant, and sometimes seem to contain hidden threats. It seems to cooperate, and it seems to be uncooperative, just grasping the tolerance limit of everyone for him, stuck on the edge of torture. In terms of the means of controlling people's hearts, it is indeed good. It's a pity that he didn't know that Li Yi's decryption ability can even translate his brain waves. Several people listened to Li Yi's continued analysis, and they all had their own feelings. Zhao He thought, this kid's decryption ability is indeed interesting. He can actually judge the surface consciousness of the brain waves? Doesn't that mean he can easily see through the lies of people's hearts? Zhao He has lived for more than 300 years. What kind of people has he not seen? With his experience and knowledge, humans can basically see through any lies they want to tell him. But this is also limited to humans. If it were other species, they would naturally feel at a loss. After all, the emotional expressions, civilization and culture of other intelligent species are completely different from those of humans. It is naturally difficult to see through their inner nature at once. Lu Yancheng also expressed his admiration for Li Yi's skills in this area. He said several times, "Li Yi, you have this decryption ability, so there is no need to go to the battlefield often. It is more serious to get more intelligence for us. Staying in the rear is safe and you can get military merits. Isn't it wonderful? If you really want to go to the battlefield, try to wait until you have mastered the ultimate skills of the heavenly rank and have the ability to break the defense of the S-class mecha before going. In this way, your safety will be much higher." After he finished speaking, he laughed at the public channel. He felt that this suggestion was quite sincere and reliable, right? Li Yu said, "Commander Lu's suggestion is very good. As for what battlefield I should be involved in later, I will listen to the commander's arrangement." The other two were stunned when they heard this. Yes, Lu Yancheng didn't know that Li Yi had the ultimate skills of the heavenly rank. His strength is basically the same as He Guangzi, right? The two people who were obsessed with interrogation almost forgot about it. Should I say it? Zhao He's mind turned around, and before he could say anything, he heard He Guangzi say, "Old Lu, stop interrupting. I'll take care of the command and personnel arrangements. Just do your job and lead the team to charge." Lu Yancheng smacked his lips and said, "I just said that, to give some advice. After all, compared with a high-level Xianwei, we still lack enough top intelligence talents, right?" He Guangzi smiled slightly in his heart. "I don't know if you will say the same thing when you see Li Yi's true strength." He ignored Lu Yancheng and continued to ask Heng Suer questions. Heng Suer naturally couldn't hear the corresponding sound from their public frequency. Although he noticed that He Guangzi's interrogation rhythm suddenly slowed down, he didn't take the opportunity to start immediately, but kept his eyes slightly moving. In this way, the interrogation passed for another 2 hours in a blink of an eye. Lu Yancheng still kept the position closest to Heng Suer to prevent him from suddenly attacking, without slacking off at all, showing amazing concentration. At this moment, Li Yu also summarized the intelligence he had obtained and continued to broadcast on the public channel. "I roughly know the specific situation of Heng Suer, the god of creation, the ancestor of the Star Clan, Wu's Hibbo and others. There is no doubt that the god of creation has been active in the world for the longest time, followed by the ancestor of the Star Clan. It is not yet possible to verify which era the god of creation is the resurrected from, but the ancestor of the Star Clan is definitely a resurrected from the 5th era. At the same time, he was probably a well-known technical expert in the 5th era. The corresponding records should be found in the relevant relics of the 5th era. His name in the Star Clan is only known by the gold level, and it is called the ancestor of all changes. It is said that the strength of this ancestor of all changes in the 5th era was neither good nor bad, and was only about equivalent to the strength of the middle-level gold. It was only because he was proficient in the technology of pinching the real into the virtual that he was successfully revived in our era and began to plan to prolong his life, advance, and avoid disasters. The time of resurrection was about 6,000 years ago. After he seized the body of a genius from the Star Clan, he began to lie dormant, formulated an advancement plan, and collected a rare mineral called Hangor, which is the core raw material of artificial star technology. He spent hundreds of years collecting raw materials and successfully created an artificial star with a range of 1 kilometer, and digested it, thereby breaking through to the demigod level, and it is even possible to go further and reach the quasi-god level. This is uncertain, this is just Heng Suer's guess. After that, the ancestor of all changes began to integrate the Star Clan, and pass down artificial star technology, and began to mass-produce strong people above the silver level. Therefore, the Star Clan jumped from an ordinary bronze race to a powerful silver race in just a few thousand years, and its comprehensive strength was comparable to that of the gold race. However, more than 4,000 years ago, the situation changed. At that time, the god of creation seemed to have returned from traveling in the outside world, or in other words, he was awakened. In short, for some reason, the god of creation, who had disappeared for more than 100,000 years in the history of the development of the Star Clan, reappeared. The strength of this god of creation is no longer known, but he did have a long and protracted struggle with the ancestor of all changes. They are not sure of the final result. They only know that the ancestor of all changes began to hide and disappeared for thousands of years. It was not until the last 300 or 400 years that he reappeared and took charge of the Star Clan again. I think this is the fundamental reason why the two types of the strongest people, the young and the old, are at odds with each other in this war of the Star Clan, because when the old generation of strong people became gold level, they basically had nothing to do with this ancestor of all changes. On the contrary, the current group of young and strong people received the support of the ancestor of all changes 300 or 400 years ago and quickly advanced to become gold level. Everyone listened carefully. Some of the information they had learned from interrogating prisoners of other levels before, so they were not surprised, and could only be regarded as mutual confirmation. For example, the artificial star technology is the key to the breakthrough and advancement of the Star Clan. But the ins and outs of the appearance of the ancestor of all changes, such as this, is the first time to hear about it. Zhao He sighed, so that's how it is. After listening to Li Yi's deciphering and analysis, many of the questionable intelligence about the Star Clan in the past finally have an explanation. I didn't expect that the reason they invaded us, in addition to the Enlightenment Mountain, was actually because of this hang mine. What is the approximate total amount of this mineral in our star field? He Guangzi said. I just checked, there is not much. Among the related mining stars detected so far, there are only 3 or 4 small mines. According to their technology, it is estimated that they can only support 3 to 5 demigod level advancements, or a dozen gold level advancements. Are they going to fight to the death with so few people? Lu Yanqing was surprised. Li Yu shrugged and said, because their current reserves are almost exhausted, and many planets in our star field have not yet been developed. Maybe there are some on other remote planets. Zhao He pondered and said, I have a question. The information you deciphered, Li Yi, basically makes sense, and can be corroborated with the many pieces of information obtained before. But how did you decipher so much information with brain waves? After all, many things have already involved a deeper level. Can brain waves, an activity on the surface of consciousness, really get so much information? Also, where's the time book controlled by Hangsel hidden? Can you decipher it? Chapter 308 Test. Before Li Yi explained, He Guangzi smiled and explained, the principle is similar to deciphering the text of an alien race, but it is more complicated. It is not difficult in practice. If the masters of the Thor sequence study carefully, they can also learn the skill of deciphering human brain waves, but deciphering a master of Hangsuer's level is difficult. After all, his brain waves are vast and extremely complicated. Even if ordinary masters can copy his brain waves, they may not be able to ensure 100% capture. Once there is an omission, it will lead to major omissions in the deciphering, and go in the opposite direction. Hearing this, Zhao He laughed immediately. Okay, after talking for so long, it turns out that you are bragging about yourself. From what you said, only someone like you who is extremely familiar with the characteristics of lightning can completely capture and copy the brain waves of Hangsuer's level. He Guangzi smiled reservedly, it's just basic operation. Of course, without Li Yi's deciphering, even with these complete brain wave copies, it would be difficult to crack it quickly. Lu Yanqing said curiously, why? Aren't there records of all of them? If Li Yi wasn't here, we could still crack them one by one, right? It would just take a little longer. He Guangzi shook his head and said, in theory, it's possible, but in practice it's very difficult. An ordinary decryption expert would probably take several months to decrypt it. By then, it would be too late, and there would be no real-time feedback, so we wouldn't be able to quickly obtain the most important intelligence. In essence, the life structure of the Star Clan is very different from ours. Even if we can identify their brain waves, it's not easy to find the patterns in them quickly. It's rare to be able to find the patterns as quickly as Li Yi and quickly match them to the corresponding problems. After hearing this, Lu Yanqing was so impressed that he even wanted Li Yi to stay behind and crack all kinds of intelligence. He thought to himself, old he is still pushing things too fast. Even if Li Yi has strength comparable to that of a high-level heavenly rank warrior, he is just barely up to standard. There is no need to get involved in our dangerous battle section so early. Even if young people need training, how old is he? In the future, I still have to find a way to keep Li Yi in the rear and try not to go to the front line. Zhao He didn't pay attention to Lu Yanqing's thoughts, and said, I haven't talked about the follow-up to the question I raised before, so don't interrupt me, old he. Li Yu said, Deputy Minister Zhao, are you referring to the Book of Time? Zhao He nodded, yes, this is the core. If we can get a treasure of this level, our subsequent operations will be much easier. He Guangzi said, I guess it's uncertain. Every time I asked Heng Suo where the branch of the Book of Time was hidden, he avoided the question and didn't say anything. In this situation, Li Yu is a good cook without rice. It's hard for him to do anything. Li Yu pondered and said, I really can't decipher the existence of the time book branch from Heng Suo's brain wave feedback. However, based on my observation of Heng Suo, this branch should be hidden next to him. When Chief He asked these questions before, his eyes and expression did not move, but his brain waves did have very slight abnormal changes. Although it looks like normal brain wave activity, in fact, it is similar to the performance of guilty conscience. He Guangzi shook his head and said, I understand what you mean. The problem is that I have scanned the surrounding area of his body. Even inside his body, I have conducted microelectric detection and found nothing. Li Yu said, there is another possibility, that is, the time book itself is not easy to be scanned by the detection system. It can only be revealed through special means. With He Guangzi's wisdom, he naturally considered this possibility. However, he had tried several times during the interrogation and did not find anything. Li Yu thought about it and simply controlled the Pluto Mecha to eject his palm and took the initiative to reach out to Heng Suo. In that case, let me test it directly. He Guangzi originally wanted to stop him, but when he thought about Li Yu's strength, and the interrogation had reached a stalemate, he let Li Yu play. In this situation, even if Heng Suo had some hidden tricks, he really had to force him. Whoosh! The Pluto Mecha attacked at a moderate speed, approaching Heng Suo at a speed visible to the naked eye. Heng Suo's eyes flickered, as if he was hesitating whether to dodge. Obviously, he could judge that it was precisely because of the Pluto Mecha's moderate approach that he had no other chance to move around. If the Pluto Mecha suddenly attacked, his teammates would not react in time and would not make up for it, or even if they reacted, they would have tacitly prepared, but because of the huge movement of the Pluto Mecha, Heng Suo would always have the opportunity to jump out of the gap between the positions of several people. But now the Pluto Mecha was not in a hurry, and only relied on its larger tonnage to slowly press down. Even if he suddenly started to rush out, he had to get past a Pluto Mecha first. Even if he could get past a Pluto Mecha, the three subsequent mechas obviously had enough time to stop him. Therefore, at this moment, the best test action was just the Pluto Mecha, which was pressing down with a grand momentum, making Heng Suo in a dilemma. Can they really see where the time book is hidden? His heart sank. Should I use my trump card now? Since the interrogation entered the middle, he felt a sense of crisis that seemed to be there and not there. Moreover, He Guangzi's interrogation of him was not in a hurry and lasted for several hours, which made him feel very strange. It was as if someone had learned more and more about his situation through indirect attacks. The huge disadvantage of not being able to control the divine Mecha, and the weakening of the divinity of the ice prison, made him feel like he was naked in the ice and snow at this moment, and it was extremely cold. Huh? As the wind passed, the huge fist stopped. At this time, the fist of the Pluto Mecha landed 0.1 meters away from Heng Suo's forehead, and it stopped moving forward. The huge wind pressure continued to flow with the fist stopping, blowing Heng Suo's skin and flesh wrinkled like a deflated ball. But Heng Suo still did not move his body. His eyes were cold, and he lowered his head to prevent everyone from feeling his gaze. He actually ignored the threatening punch of the Pluto Mecha. He Guangzi and others were a little surprised. Heng Suo, this guy, is so patient? Is he aware that Li Yu will stop, or does he have other plans and must endure it? However, the more crucial thing is Heng Suo's judgment and decisiveness, which gave everyone a new understanding. Zhao He's eyes became more serious, and he said, from the small, I can see the big. If it were a mecha battle, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to last 50 moves against Heng Suo. Lu Yansheng said, Deputy Director Zhao, isn't that too arbitrary? Zhao He said in a deep voice, not arbitrary. I knew from the fact that Heng Suo could withstand our concentrated fire for so long that this was a very powerful enemy. Lu Yansheng shook his head and said, no, Deputy Director Zhao, I mean, you may not even be able to last 50 moves, most likely only 40. Zhao He, Li Yu coughed lightly and said, everyone, I roughly know where the time book branch is hidden. Chapter 309, Cracking. He Guangzi was stunned, you know it now? Where is it hidden? Zhao He was also surprised. Li Yu only stretched out his hand to test it once, and he knew it? Li Yu said, Commander He, please send Heng Suo's brainwave data first, and I will confirm it. If it is confirmed to be okay, I will probably figure out where it is. He Guangzi did not hesitate and sent the latest brainwave data immediately. On the public channel, several people who saw the latest brainwave data were shocked. The complexity has doubled again? This brainwave data is more than just stars, it is condensed like a cluster of stars. With the naked eye, it is impossible to see its internal veins and structure. Lu Yancheng said, the brainwaves of the star tribe are so complex, so many times more complex than ours, but the level of intelligence they show is not far beyond ours. It's really too strange. It can't be explained by their other talents. I think there must be something hidden in it, Zhao He said. Then what do you think is hidden, old Lu? Lu Yancheng said, if I knew, I would have said it long ago. Zhao He snorted, then stopped interrupting. Say something useful. He Guangzi couldn't help laughing, and understood that Zhao He was just seeking revenge for the arrow he had just shot. Lu Yancheng complained about Zhao He so bluntly that the old man Zhao He was no longer in a good mood. However, He Guangzi felt that Lu Yancheng's statement was somewhat correct, so he said, to be honest, I also agree with what Lao Lu said this time. I have observed other star tribes, and their brainwave complexity is also much higher than ours, and higher than the two tribe. If it is just because the star tribe is congenitally defective and is a man-made race, I think this explanation is indeed not enough. There should be other mysteries hidden in this that we need to explore. Zhao He nodded slightly. Lao He is right. Lu Yancheng was speechless. Zhao He was a guy who changed his face quickly and was double standard. He didn't like to hear the truth. Here, Li Yu also quickly read Heng Suo's brainwave chart and frowned slightly. The difficulty of deciphering this time was very great. Because Heng Suo's brainwave activity was too high just now, like a large group of dense light, causing various irrelevant brainwaves to look like interference items. If the deciphering is to be completed, it will take at least 10 minutes. Li Yu did not hesitate and immediately entered the state of brain transcendence and self-consciousness to quickly improve his brain power. As long as he has overwhelming brain power, I believe the difficulty of deciphering will drop significantly. At this moment, if He Guangzi was in a state of facing Li Yi, he would probably be able to sense Li Yi's brain waves at this moment, which were also as active as stars, reaching a level of brain power comparable to that of the strongest human beings. No, it is even slightly higher. Moreover, at the same level of brain power, Li Yi's efficiency in utilizing the brain is far higher than that of others. The reason for this is naturally because of the proficiency, perfection, and even subtle skills and knowledge in all aspects. The so-called unity of hand, eye, and brain essentially means that physical skills can also improve the efficiency of brain power. In just a blink of an eye, he completed the deciphering of Heng Suo's EEG and smiled slightly. Sure enough, my judgment was correct. The thought flashed through his mind, and he immediately said, everyone, I am lucky to have completed the decryption. The time book is hidden on Heng Suo's skin on his chest. It is very hidden. He must actively activate it with divinity to reveal its traces and be recognized by the detection system. Now, I already know the specific location. I just need to peel off the skin on his chest. In this way, even if he does not actively activate it, I can get this time book. Hearing this, the three of them were delighted. So it was replaced with skin. It is indeed hidden. He Guangzi laughed and shook his head. He had considered this possibility before, but because he could not scan any abnormalities, he abandoned this possibility. However, your decryption speed this time is actually faster than before? Isn't this more complicated? Did you just hide your shortcomings? Li Yu smiled and said, it's mainly because my proficiency has improved. After the previous decryption, I have also summarized the brainwave patterns of the Star Clan. As for the self-created trick of brain superlifting, he didn't mention it much. Lu Yanchen, awesome. He said that he was awesome, but he felt that he should find a way to let Li Yu stay behind and get more intelligence. Zhao He said, there is no time to lose. Lao Lu, Lao He, you guys should prepare for defense. Next, I will take action to get the time book. Don't neglect it. Li Yu, observe the movement and be ready to freeze at any time. After a few words, the four of them adjusted the position of the mechas tacitly, and the fire dragon Mecha also started to move at the same time, reaching forward. No matter how wary Zhao He was of Heng Suo, now was the time for him to control the divine Mecha. He had a crushing advantage, and he would not be modest when it was time to take action. Boom! The airflow flowed violently, and the thick arm of the fire dragon Mecha cut through the cold air in the ice prison, and suddenly reached down with the force of thunder, smashing into Heng Suo. Unlike Li Yu's previous slow and steady exploration, This time they already knew the specific target, and the people around them were also well prepared, so the fire dragon mech attacked at full speed, without holding back at all. This time, Hengsuo had no room to hesitate. Even though his physical strength was very strong and his mobility was full, it was still far inferior to the S-class mech. It was impossible to take it head-on. His divinity flashed outside his body, emitting a huge and intense heat flow, which immediately caused his body to flash. Whoosh! His physical body immediately disappeared from the scene like a ghost and ran away. At this time, Lu Yansheng, who had already made preparations, controlled the Sea King Mech and punched the ground. Boom! Along with a violent shaking of the ground, countless frosts extended out with a crackle, instantly forming a thick and hollow large round ice ball, which barely blocked Hengsuo in the outer circle. Obviously, to stop Hengsuo, a top-level strongman in the physical state, it is necessary to launch a range attack, suppress his range of activities, and greatly weaken his mobility. At the same time, the Pluto Mecha did not hesitate, and activated the ice prison feature at the same time, opening its mouth and spraying out a divine energy cannon like a rainstorm, which turned into dense raindrops and shot towards Hengsuo's surroundings. Crackling. In the blink of an eye, countless frosts condensed, and Hengsuo's body was covered with tiny raindrops, which then turned into ice cones and froze his body. His divinity had been weakened by the ice prison, and now he was frozen just a few steps away, with no chance of other activities. He instantly realized that he was still at a great disadvantage at the moment. Damn it, I can only take out the trick I have been brewing for a long time in advance. Thunder Sun Wanhua. Hengsuo's eyes flashed with a fierce look, and he tried his best to activate the last part of the remaining divinity reserve in his body. Chapter 310. Just before Hengsuo was completely frozen, divine energy burst out from his body. Boom. In the blink of an eye, countless divine energies wrapped around Hengsuo's body, and suddenly turned into countless purple-blue lightning arrows, shooting out in all directions. Swish! In the bone-chilling ice prison, these lightning arrows penetrated countless frozen waves and rain, penetrated the gaps in the divine mechas that were blocking them, and continued to shoot to the back. On the periphery, there was a spherical frozen wall created by Lu Yansheng's Sea King Mecha, covering a range of 5 or 6 kilometers. Hengsuo's body is scattered and hidden in these lightning arrows. Everyone pay attention to intercept them. Zhao He keenly noticed the wonderfulness of this move. Hengsuo could actually split his body into countless lightning arrows. Even if any of these lightning arrows broke through and escaped from the range of the frozen wall, Hengsuo might be able to jump out and escape successfully. Fortunately, everyone was on guard against Hengsuo's escape, and no one was distracted. Soon, Lu Yansheng controlled the Sea King Mecha, constantly smashing the ground, and constantly stacking and strengthening his range skills. Boom! 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 In the blink of an eye, this huge spherical interception shield was constantly strengthened to avoid being penetrated by Hengsuo's lightning arrows. At the same time, the first wave of lightning arrows shot out had also avoided the subsequent strengthened spherical freezing shield, and effortlessly penetrated the outermost frozen wall. Swish! 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 In an instant, 7 extremely condensed lightning arrows flew out after the high temperature melted the frozen wall, and were about to fly to the outer range of the ice prison. But at this moment, the Pluto Mecha responsible for checking for leaks and filing in the gaps had already taken off and was paying attention to the outer layer of the spherical shield in midair. As soon as he saw the extremely subtle changes in the spherical shield, he predicted the subsequent shooting direction of the spherical shield, and immediately opened his mouth to spray out the extremely freezing divine energy cannon. As soon as this cannon was fired, it turned into more than a dozen scattered streams of light, intercepting the position he predicted. Swoosh! In an instant, the 7 escaping lightning arrows were immediately intercepted and shot at by the divine energy cannon. At this moment, Li Yu's perfect divine control skills reflected its amazing precision interception and amazing cohesion. Boom! 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 Every 2 scattered divine energy cannons accurately intercepted a lightning arrow, and accurately froze the body of Hengsuo hidden in it. Amid the sound of crackling, a total of 7 ice cubes fell from the sky in various places around and fell on the ice prison. Inside the shield, due to Lu Yansheng's timely freezing blessing, the frozen wall became thicker, and the other slower lightning arrows were directly intercepted and failed to escape successfully. They were frozen by the Sea King Mecha one after another. Everyone thought to themselves that Hengsuo was trapped in the weakening of the god-suppressing prison, So he failed to show the style of the top-level strongest? In this regard, Lu Yuncheng laughed and said, this Hangsuo played very poorly. Although his moves were good, the timing of his escape was too bad. Obviously. The moment he was just thought was the time when his success rate of escaping was the highest, but he waited until we finished the interrogation and prepared to attack him. Zhao He shook his head and said, he probably wanted to wait for us to relax, or he needed time to prepare for this move, but the situation was critical and he had to make a hasty move. After all, the move that can decompose the body and take it away is already a top-level strongest combination skill, and it is not something that can be used casually. He Guangzi said calmly, check it more, lest he has a backup plan and escapes. Logically speaking, Hangsuo should have no chance to escape. But everyone knew how powerful the top strongest people were. After being reminded by He Guangzi, they also picked up their strength and checked carefully. By the way, look for the time book branch book. Half an hour later, everyone collected all the scattered flesh of Hangsuo and completed the refreezing of Hangsuo. It is worth mentioning that Hangsuo's state at the moment is very strange. With the help of the move of Lei Yang Wanhua, his body was directly divided into hundreds of parts, hidden in the thousands of lightning arrows. Some lightning arrows did not hide the flesh, while others hid several parts. Each frozen flesh body was in the shape of a frozen flame, and the true appearance could not be seen. In order to prevent accidents, everyone did not gather these scattered flesh bodies together, but dug dozens of ice pits, buried them everywhere, and marked them. These hundreds of pieces of flesh that formed flames still have extremely subtle divine flow capabilities. Therefore, it is possible that Hangsuo will be successfully thought by himself in the short term. Everyone knew this, but there was no way for the time being, and they could only hope for the effectiveness of this Hangsuo prison, or come over to reinforce the freeze every once in a while. Moreover, since Hangsuo's body has already formed a flame state, it is difficult to infer whether the number collected this time is consistent based on the structure of the body, and whether one or two pieces of the body have successfully escaped. Several people always maintained their suspicions and activated a detection system to scan the entire layer of space over and over again. It was not until Li Yi found the frozen body corresponding to the time book branch book based on the route Hangsuo flew out before that everyone temporarily stopped searching for whether Hangsuo had missed any clones. There was no way. Hangsuo was such a top-level power that even Lin Jianlong might not be able to defeat him alone. During the process, He Guangzi frowned. Although he was confident that he had done everything he should do perfectly, he always felt that there was something missing, like a thorn in his throat, and he was not very happy. Li Yi silently searched for video records and calculated the split of Hangsuo's body and the location of the time book according to the proportion. When the calculation results came out, he said directly, the lightning arrow corresponding to the chest position should be buried at the 32nd burial point by us. We can try to peel it off. Okay, let me do it. Li Yi, you continue to calculate and see if Hangsuo has missed any escaped meat fragments, He Guangzi replied, and took action directly. Directly controlling the Thunder King Mecha to grab the flame meat at the 32nd burial point and thaw it with a burning electric property. Zzz. With a slight flash of electric light, the meat broke away from the frozen flame state and returned to ruler-sized chest meat, falling to the ground. At the same time, for some reason, the time book was directly bounced down, floating in the air, flowing lightly. It was as thin as a transparent gauze, the size of a palm. On the surface, there were some extremely mysterious patterns. With a mecha's fingers thicker than a millstone, it really tested their skills to pinch it. However, this did not pose a problem for the masters. The divine power flowed out from the fingertips of the Thunder King Mech, transforming into a lifelike human hand, and easily grasped the transparent gauze. This little thing is actually the legendary time book. It's really magical. Everyone looked at the time book intently, and they were all a little amazed. Zhao He said, try to see if you can activate this thing and see what secrets are hidden inside. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311 Activation. Although Li Yi had not yet finished his calculations, he also paid some attention to the time book. The Thunder King Mecha merged its divinity into the time book and tried to activate it. Zzz. The divinity rushed over and was passively transformed into a cyan blue arc, which was ejected around the time book. Everyone's eyes condensed slightly. Did this directly transform Lao He's divinity into a characteristic? Everyone realized that in order to activate this time book, some special means were needed. Involuntarily, everyone looked at the Pluto Mecha on the side. Did Li Yi decipher the corresponding usage method before? Before several people asked, Li Yi said at the right time, according to my previous deciphering content, only a high concentration of divinity is needed to stimulate it, which should be enough. However, whether there are any requirements for the attributes of divinity is still uncertain. Chief He can try to increase the concentration of divinity. Immediately, He Guangzi increased the amount of divinity. Pala pala. In a moment, the divine nature of the Thunder King transmitted from the fingertips of the Thunder King Mecha became more and more intense, forming a state like clouds and mist. However, when it came into contact with the time book, it still passively formed an arc, which kept popping out and pierced through the ice surface, leaving a large dent. He Guangzi frowned and continued to increase his strength. Soon, a large group of thunder and lightning rain waterfalls formed around the fingertips of the Thunder King Mecha, and shot out to the surrounding area. The entire thick purple palm was like holding up a huge thundercloud, which was really magical. However, with such operation, the time book still did not change at all. Obviously, the activation still failed. Lu Yansheng couldn't stand it anymore, and directly operated the Sea King Mecha to move closer. Let me do it, Lao He, don't break this thing. I have space-type characteristics, maybe it can work. Lu Yansheng is also a celestial god sequence, so he naturally mastered the space characteristics. His space characteristics are derived from the later period. Although it has not yet been transformed into a complete conceptual characteristic, it is also extraordinary. He Guangzi heard this and didn't try again. He was indeed afraid that the amount of divine power was too large and he would accidentally destroy the paper-like transparent gauze. Immediately, he threw the time book into the air. At the same time, there was a propulsive airflow at the tip of his palm, blowing the time book towards the Sea King Mecha. The Sea King Mecha reached out at the same time, and the divine power extended from the fingertips, lightly catching the time book. Then, the Sea King's divine power with special characteristics directly turned into a thick cloud, constantly washing inward. After a while, the time book lit up and emitted a strange brilliance. It was like a rainbow light with a more diverse color spectrum, which continued to spiral outward to form a vertical spiral rainbow bridge, which was extremely magical. Look, Lao He, it really has to be my turn, right? Lu Yansheng laughed triumphantly. He Guangzi couldn't stand Lu Yansheng's boastful look, and said speechlessly, okay, you are awesome, and your spatial characteristics are amazing, okay. Zhao He ignored the two people and paid full attention to the dynamics of the time book. The spiral rainbow bridge extended to about 7 or 8 meters and then stopped. The surrounding environment only produced some extremely subtle spatial vibrations, and there were no other changes. After observing for a long time, Zhao He shook his head and said, this is not enough. Old Lu, your spatial characteristics are still a little bit off. They have not been fully strengthened. Let's change people. Li Yi, you go. Lu Yansheng, Li Yi. His spatial characteristics are stronger than mine, Zhao He pondered and said, according to my observation, it is probably much stronger than your spatial characteristics. You can give it a try. Lu Yansheng was a little unbelievable and thought, could it be that the enhancement that Li Yi just got after upgrading is mainly the enhancement of spatial characteristics? Thinking of this, he also became curious and wanted to see what the situation was after Li Yi's enhancement. Although Li Yi had not yet finished the calculation, it was almost the same. He did not find any escaped split of Hangser. It was estimated that he either escaped successfully by other means, or failed in a desperate attempt. Hearing this, he temporarily interrupted the calculation and controlled the Pluto Mecha to move forward. Taking the transparent gauze handed over by the Sea King Mecha, the Pluto divinity on the fingertips of the Pluto Mecha also began to release. Soon, before the Pluto divinity began to form a strong state, the transparent gauze flashed a more enhanced rainbow light. Not only that, but extremely strong spatial vibrations also appeared in the surrounding areas. Seeing this, Lu Yansheng's pupils suddenly shrank. Why is the difference in the spatial characteristics so big? Li Yi's conceptual characteristics of spatial characteristics are so much stronger than his own? He was quite surprised. Could it be that the movement when I came down before was caused by his spatial characteristics? Interesting, so this is the benefit of this kid after upgrading, not bad. It turns out that from C level to A level, it can actually strengthen a characteristic so easily. I can teach this trick to my students later. Let's try it. Because Yi Guangzi and Zhao Haoyi concealed a lot of information from Lu Yunsheng, Lu Yunsheng made a wrong inference at this moment, and he didn't know it, and he felt that he had seen through something, and was quite proud. At the same time, Li Yu noticed that the time branch book was rapidly absorbing his divinity, so he kept gathering over. Soon, the rainbow light emitted by the time book became more and more dazzling, and the color spectrum presented also showed a colorful dreamy color tone, which kept rotating and extended a rainbow bridge of dozens of meters. Everyone was also attracted by the dreamy color tone and was amazed. However, everyone could not see the function of the rainbow bridge for a while. While amazed, they also activated a detection system and observed carefully. Zhao He observed for a long time and said, Li Yi, add a little more divinity, it should be close to the limit. Li Yi shook his head and said, no, I just tried it, this height is the limit. Zhao He said, don't you still have the conceptualized gravity characteristic? Try this, this is also related to the time and space characteristics, maybe it will be useful. Lu Yunsheng's heart moved when he heard it, and he thought to himself, Li Yu actually has a second conceptualized characteristic? Could it be that the moon he got this time has a high foundation? At this time, Li Yu had activated the gravity characteristic and continued to blast the time book. Sure enough, as the gravitational properties were activated, the spiral rainbow bridge outside the light support book grew larger and larger, and suddenly broke through to a height of nearly 70 or 80 meters. Boom! All of a sudden, an extremely violent vibration began to be heard around the entire Henshin prison. The mechas were actually unstable, toppling from side to side, unable to maintain balance. Everyone was keenly aware that this imbalance was not an imbalance on the physical level. It was as if the entire space was upside down, and the space itself was forcibly controlling the movements of the mechas. Lu Yunsheng, it's a bit outrageous. Deputy Director Zhao, what on earth is the light support book at this time, and it's so powerful? Chapter 312 Secret Book. Lu Yunsheng was not the only one who had this problem. Li Yi and He Guangzi also had it. He Guangzi knew a little more and had obtained enough information from Qiao Dong. However, since he did not have the contact information of the undercover Supreme Being, he did not know some things. For example, the information about the time branch book was mainly known by the two Federation presidents, Lin Jianlong and Duanmu Shang. Hearing this, Zhao He pondered for a moment, and then said, at this point, as the first discoverers of the time branch book, you should also know it. 18 years ago, Lao Qin, Lao Lin, Duanmu and I, due to some opportunity, the four of us joined forces to explore the time ruins, and found a record file from it. The text of the file, according to the deciphering, should be the last text of the second era. As you know, although we have discovered a lot of texts of divine civilizations before, due to the lack of corresponding deciphering materials, this record file has never been deciphered before. It was not until Li Yi uploaded the academic report on the deciphering of the ant-fly people that we learned that there is actually a race in modern times that has inherited this kind of text, and it has not changed much. It is estimated that the particularity of the Xianshu ruins has resulted in this group of ant-fly people not being affected too much by the flow of time. In any case, Duanmu successfully deciphered the file and learned about the existence of a thing called the Secret Book of Time. What is clear is that the Secret Book of Time is a god-level treasure from the first era. Hearing this, Li Yi's heart trembled slightly. The Secret Book of Time, isn't this something that the gourd man left deep in the heritage ruins? Unexpectedly, the Book of Time is actually related to the Secret Book of Time. The footprints of this gourd man are really everywhere. He perked up and listened to Zhao He continue to explain. The Secret Book of Time is an item used by real gods. It has the function of automatically recording time, years, and everything, and it also has the function of forcibly reversing time and space. It is said that only those who have the endowment of the God of Destiny sequence can control this thing. The three were all shocked. Real gods? Are there really intelligent creatures that can reach this level? Real gods are already immortal, right? According to previous records, the Supremas and Masters of the First and Second Eras should not have reached the level of true gods, right? The three people almost raised different questions at the same time. Hearing this, Zhao He smiled bitterly. From the birth of the universe to the present, it is still unknown whether there have been any intelligent creatures that have reached this level, but there is no doubt that the Secret Book of Time should be real, because the strongest people of the Star Clan also generally believe that this thing exists. and have been looking for it. He Guangzi immediately understood that the news Zhao He was talking about should have been passed on by the strongest undercover. Li Yi said thoughtfully, in other words, this secret book of time is what the ancestor of the Star Clan, the resuscitator of the Fifth Era, is looking for. He asked the group of golden powerhouses under him to find this thing for him, or is it because they inherited the Time Branch book a long time ago? So they know the existence of the secret book of time, Zhao He said. The two situations you asked about actually exist at the same time. On the one hand, they knew about the existence of such a thing a long time ago. On the other hand, the ancestor of the Star Clan, the resuscitator of the Fifth Era, himself seemed to be convinced of the existence of this thing, so he has been looking for it. The Time Book is one of the copies of the secret book of time, recording all things that were born between the Fourth Era and the Fifth Era. The Time Branch book records a certain section of this time period, which is equivalent to a copy within a copy. As for how to activate this thing and whether there are other mysteries, that is beyond my knowledge. Everyone nodded slightly and roughly digested this information. Lu Yancheng said, now that Li Yi has been activated to such a degree, he can be used. Why do I still see complicated rainbow light spectra? Zhao He said, these rainbow light spectra should represent all the substances and events that have appeared in the long river of time, so the cause and effect, all living things. What we have to do now is to find the time segment we want to know from these spectra and then decipher it, and if we have the ability to change the above spectrum, it is equivalent to reversing the history corresponding to this spectrum. Lu Yanchen, so powerful, Zhao He shrugged and said, it is likely that certain conditions need to be met before these records can be forcibly changed. For example, only those at least at the peak of demigod can make changes, and even those at the peak of demigod may not be able to do it. Moreover, we may not be able to decipher these rainbow light spectra now. We haven't figured out which interval represents which time, which existence, and which substance it represents. Think about it carefully. Such a large universe and such a long time are recorded in this thing. It must be vast. Hearing this, everyone turned their eyes to the Pluto mech. He Guangzi said, Li Yi, your decryption skills are so powerful. Can you see the pattern and decrypt something? Li Yi said with embarrassment, you think too highly of me. This thing is so complicated, and we lack corresponding clues. To be honest, it is more difficult to decipher than the Book of Heaven. I think, at least we need to obtain some key reference objects to figure out what spectrum represents what and what kind of information exists, and then it is possible to decipher it. After all, whether it is language or these rainbow light spectra, they are just a way of encoding information. Even if I can see the pattern and figure out the encoding pattern, it may be a wrong encoding pattern. There must be an initial information point to complete the recognition of the pattern of all spectrum encodings. He just activated his subtle analysis skills and looked at it from the perspective of the detection system. From this perspective, there are countless extremely tiny fluctuations in the subtle parts of the rainbow light, shaking very regularly. At first glance, it seems to be a binary pattern, and it also seems to be a hexadecimal pattern. But these are useless, because this is equivalent to a bunch of codes, but there is no code book. After all, the perfect level of decryption skills cannot decrypt everything. Some things lack clues, are extremely complex, and are beyond his ability. Just like he deciphered the soul secret method and the vacuum purification method before, it was because he mastered the language of the ant-fly people and had a reference to the basics that he was able to decipher them. But the thing in front of him, the reference codebook, is obviously something else. It may not even be something like a record file, but it may be something that can exist forever. Hearing this, Lu Yancheng said speechlessly, so we spent so much effort and got such a useless thing. Zhao He shook his head, no, even so, it is still useful. Chapter 313 Ranking. Lu Yancheng was surprised. What else can it do? Zhao He said, of course it is to prevent the Star Clan from deciphering this thing in advance. After all, once this thing is really deciphered, not only will all the hidden secrets in history be discovered, but it may also be possible to specifically wipe out anything. How can such a powerful item be allowed to be controlled by other civilizations? That's true, but is it just a defensive gain? There is no active effect. Yes, Zhao He smiled faintly. Didn't you see that this spiral rainbow bridge has a strong power to reverse time and space? When Li Yi's divinity is 1 or 2 levels higher, it is estimated that this thing can be used to launch a range-type trapping move. By then, no matter what battlefield it is on, it will have a very strong effect. He Guangzi nodded slightly and said, indeed, just now even we felt a sense of imbalance in time and space. and we felt powerless. When Li Yi's divine mecha is upgraded again, or his strength is improved, and he can activate a higher quality divinity, it will definitely be a killer weapon, Zhao He said. Not only that, the locking and sealing ability inside the spiral rainbow bridge is also outstanding. If the enemy can be trapped in the bridge during the battle, at least the strongest level can be locked up, Lu Yancheng said. This sounds good, at least it is not useless. However, since the strong men with the title of Zibu of the Star Clan all carry Zibu, why didn't they use it in the previous war? Without saying too much, this Hangsel should be able to do it, right? Zhao He shook his head and said, if it is our human side, it would be easier, but if it is the Star Clan, it will be difficult. Laolu, have you forgotten that their mainstream sequences are all alien god sequences? Although the characteristics are more tricky, they are not as comprehensive as ours. That's right, I forgot that we have celestial gods who can master space-related characteristics. Even if their alien god sequences can activate the Times Hibu, in order to exert their power, I am afraid the total amount of divinity or preparation time required is indispensable. After everyone chatted for a while, Zhao He said, Li Yi, since you now have two special abilities that can activate this time book, I'll give this time book to you. Li Yi said, okay, thank you, Deputy Director Zhao. Why are you being polite? You've made a lot of contributions this time. This guaranteed S-level item is also a reward for you. By the way, how is the calculation of Hangsuo's physical body? Li Yi pondered and said, I just took the time to calculate all of Hangsuo's bodies, and found that there is indeed nothing missing. Of course, it is not ruled out that when he split the body, he also copied and derived part of the body to confuse us with a trick, while another part actually escaped. This is indeed difficult. The three of them frowned. The fact is just as Li Yi said, facing a top-level powerful person, even if it is only in the physical state, it should be treated with the greatest caution. But in this situation, everything that should be done has been done. What can be done next? At this time, He Guangzi pondered and said, I will handle the subsequent investigation. Even if Hangser can escape, it is difficult to escape immediately in his current state of rapid weakening. At most, he can escape to other upper layers where the divinity is less weakened. Among the crowd, He Guangzi is the most familiar with the entire god-suppressing prison in the Moon Fortress. He was originally from the Moon Fortress and served as the chief officer here for a long time. Now that He Guangzi has taken on this matter, everyone thinks it is appropriate and no longer asks about it. Zhao He said, in addition, you should also pay more attention to the decoding of the Time Branch book this time, and do your best to prepare for the decoding. The clues to the decoding may be in the Time Ruins, and we will go there again soon. You are all senior members of the Federation, so I will talk about our subsequent long-term plans, short-term goals, and recent tasks. Of course, before that, let me introduce you, Li Yi, to the current main decision-making members of our Xingyu Federation. Hearing this, Lu Yancheng suddenly widened his eyes. Isn't this too fast? In his heart, Li Yi's strength is still a little lacking, right? Is it because Li Yi is too talented, so he was promoted out of turn? Or is it because the two conceptual characteristics have shown great potential? While he was puzzled, he was also gradually doubting his own judgment. Could it be that Li Yi's strength is actually close to the level of the top 10 of the Xianwei? He Guangzi was also quite surprised. Is this the rhythm of letting Li Yi enter the decision-making level? Since Li Yi successfully upgraded and showed such amazing characteristics and combat power, he knew that this matter would not be far away. But I didn't expect Zhao He to announce it directly in this occasion. Doesn't he need the consent of the other bosses? Li Yi was a little confused. Judging from the changes in the breathing rhythm of the two people on the public channel, what Zhao He is going to say next seems to be very important. Is there any other benefit hidden among the decision-making members? Zhao He said slowly, I believe you, Li Yi. Also know that the Xingyu Federation was originally an interstellar civilization regime jointly established by Lao Qin and I. It has been established for 273 years. In the beginning, Lao Qin and I were the first humans to advance to the heavenly rank. He and I were childhood friends and brothers-in-law. We have a close relationship and similar ideas. Because we were dissatisfied with the chaotic internal strife at the time, and did not want humans to be enslaved by aliens, we took the banner of human civilization in anger and began a long war. It lasted for more than 40 years. Under the baptism of war, he and I became stronger and stronger, and successively advanced to the strongest, and the general trend was established. At that time, Lao Lin had just risen in our army. He was a heavenly rank who seemed to be a little famous, not very eye-catching. That guy Duanmu is closely connected with a biological research company on Biostar at the time. He formed his own faction, guarding his own piece of land and slowly operating it, doing his own research. If we had not already established a general trend at that time, he probably would not have joined us. Zhang Shengfeng is even later. He is a genius who has risen in the past 100 years. He is more than 20 years younger than Laolu, but his strength is much greater than Laolu. Lu Yancheng immediately shouted, "Old Zhao, you're almost there. Don't compare me with that pervert." Zhao He smiled slightly and continued, "The other strongest are also my descendants. There are basically no old guys of the same age as me. You should have seen these 7 strongest on the battlefield last time, but you are probably not familiar with them. Because although they are the strongest, they do not make the main decisions of the Federation, or the workload of their main positions is not low. Their position in the Federation is mainly as a general or a deputy for internal affairs. Therefore, the remaining 7 strongest, although they are members of the decision-making level, they do not often participate in the main decisions of the Federation. Only when there are major situations will they attend and express their opinions. You should have heard of their names. They are Lao Lin's deputy Xiao Pingchuan, the chief of Earth Station Base Fang Hai, the former captain of the Dangsha ship Qiang who has resigned, the chief of Earth's Changbei Base Jin Buai, the brothers Ma Zhao and Ma who have resigned from their posts as guards of the border stars, and the only female supreme who has never held any position and is good at soul characteristics. Her name cannot be leaked. You can use Yan as her nickname." Li Yu listened carefully, and when he heard Zhao He paused in the introduction. He immediately asked, "Deputy Minister Zhao, excuse me, what do you want me to do by introducing these to me in such detail?" Zhao He said, "You have guessed it, haven't you? From today on, you will officially enter the decision-making level of the Xingyu Federation." Li Yu couldn't help but point at himself. Me, why? Although he still wanted to ask what the benefits were, he held back. Chapter 314 Benefits. Why? Zhao He smiled and said, "There are many reasons, but you just need to know that you deserve this position." Deputy Director Zhao, are you serious? Do you think I'm the kind of person who likes to joke? That's not the case. That's right. When you asked this question, I thought you were not going to keep your word. Zhao He laughed and shook his head. Li Yu said, "It's just that I'm only 20 years old, so I'm not qualified, am I?" Zhao He said, "Not qualified? Then what do you think the decision-makers need to reach to be qualified?" Li Yi. "I'm only at the upper level." Deputy Director Zhao He paused, then laughed and said, "Your knowledge, ability, combat power, and maturity in dealing with things are all worthy of it. If you don't believe me, ask Lao He." Lao He said at the right time, "Yes, I agree with Deputy Director Zhao's opinion." Lu Yancheng said, "Deputy Director Zhao, why don't you let Li Yi ask me?" Zhao He said, "Lao He is better than you in judging people, so Lao Lu, don't interrupt." Lu Yancheng wanted to say something to refute, but after thinking about it carefully, it was really true. Moreover, he was also doubting his previous judgment of Li Yi's strength at this moment. After thinking about it, he felt that there was really something wrong with him, and he couldn't help but keep silent. Although he was unwilling, he still chose to remain silent. Although Lu Yancheng was very competitive, he also thought that he was not the type to be stubborn. Listening to the silence on the public channel, He Guangzi smiled slightly and thought to himself, Lao Lu, don't blame me for not giving you face. Even the observation of the battlefield was too rough and I couldn't see Li Yi's strength. This shouldn't be the case. The more losses you suffer in your own family, the less losses you will suffer later." Zhao He continued to ask, "Li Yi, do you understand now?" Li Yi said, "Then let me change the question. Deputy Director Zhao, what decisions do the decision-makers need to make?" Zhao He smiled and said, "Li Yi, being a member of the decision-making layer has benefits and responsibilities. Let me tell you about the benefits first. First of all, of course, the level of authority. You can know all the known secrets and records of human beings. All knowledge, all records, are directly open. Basically, in front of you, there are only a few confidential files above SS level that you can't read. For the rest, you can read them at will. Secondly, I believe you also know that we humans have corresponding regional network control AI in various fortresses, and key bases. Starting today, your identity authority will be updated at the fastest speed. You can enter and exit all secret areas, secret cities, and secret units at will. Third, within the human range, You have the authority to mobilize all the key resources you want, such as divine nuclei, divine weapons, various divine technologies, human creations, human industrial products, etc. Of course, the mobilization cost of some things is relatively high, involving complex costs. If it is not necessary, of course, do not mobilize them at will, but as for divine items, as long as they are in the warehouse, you can get them directly if you need them, although at our level, the proportion of conventional resources to the improvement of evolution speed is not too high. It is also a boost, right? Fourth, for all the ruins that have been developed within the human range, or the ruins that have been discovered but not developed, you can also mobilize the archives to check them at will, or organize people to explore them on your own. Of course, to organize people, you need to have a real position in your own team. You can recruit people for this later, although we don't pay attention to factionalism internally. As a strong person, you will inevitably have people under your command who are dependent on you. These people who are attached to you will become your most reliable assistants and help you complete the major organizational activities you want. The so-called organizational activities are naturally such as exploration and development of relics, or exploration of alien ranges, or development of planets that have not been developed much. These activities are actually beneficial to our improvement of evolution speed. I'm not afraid to tell you that my talent was only average at the beginning, and I was lucky to become one of the first batch of heavenly positions. But now you see, although my strength is not as good as Lao Qin and Lao Lin, I am at least a senior supreme being. At the beginning of the establishment of the Federation, the speed of evolution can exceed that of many talented young talents. Guess, what is the reason why I have reached a height that was far beyond my reach? Hearing this, Li Yu was also a little curious. Because when Zhao He said that he had average talent at the beginning, he did not judge that Zhao He was lying. Moreover, in his understanding of the current strongest people in the human race, although Zhao He has a deep experience and strength, he feels that his talent is indeed weaker than Lin Jianlong, Zhang Shengfang and others. Even, his talent is not as good as He Guangzi and Lu Yunshen. At most, it is to Kuogai's talent, or even a few points lower. Of course, talent is a mysterious thing, and he just formed such an impression from the temperament of several people. Whether it is true or not is not necessarily correct. Thinking of this, Li Yu said, is it because Deputy Minister Zhao served as Deputy Minister, accepted the baptism of war, and obtained a lot of S-level divine core resources? Zhao He smiled slightly. This is certainly a reason, but on the other hand, governing, maintaining, and protecting a civilization, the soul will also receive corresponding blessings, slowly gain, and continue to grow. This situation is mysterious, I guess, mostly because of the divine will, and the divine will is something that needs to be pondered, studied, and cultivated after reaching the high level of the heavenly position. Li Yu nodded slowly. I didn't expect it to be related to the divine will. However, it makes sense to think about it carefully. The highest realm of fighting skills is currently the realm of divine will, and the high level of divinity is also related to divine will. Most of the time, there are many ways to reach the realm of God, but the path of divine evolution is the most common and easiest to replicate. The so-called different paths to the same destination probably means this. That is to say, holding an important position in a civilization, governing, maintaining, protecting, and even developing, can get corresponding blessings. Yes, the same principle applies to shipbuilding, Zhao He explained. It's just that the coverage of shipbuilding is only a few 100,000 or a few million people, so the soul blessings that can be received are relatively small. But there are actually some, and the positions in the Federation cover hundreds or hundreds of billions of people, so the blessings received are naturally different. Moreover, these populations must be linked together, so I suspect that the reason why we humans can overtake so quickly and accumulate such a strong foundation in 200 or 300 years is probably related to our AI and virtual networking technology. Li Yu understood. Then Deputy Minister Zhao, what kind of responsibilities should a decision-making level take after entering? Chapter 315 Level 9. Zhao He said, generally speaking, you don't need to handle daily government affairs, because we have AI government officials to assist us, and we can also check data, so it is quite easy to handle. At present, the decision-makers need the participation and processing of major decisions. In addition, you can also put forward your suggestions for optimization and adjustment of the current system. The major responsibilities, which are related to the use of force, are the development and exploration of large-scale ruins, the extermination of the true Saint Church, and the war activities against aliens. and large-scale projects for the development of civilization, large-scale research and development or construction activities, etc., require more tests of scientific research, management, operation, and architecture capabilities. These are our basic internal affairs skills. With your ability, I believe you will be familiar with and master them soon. Li Yu nodded slightly. It sounded normal, nothing special. So, I now have the 9th level of authority. Yes, the 9th level of authority, which is the top level of the current authority system. While Zhao He was talking, he glanced at his quantum communicator and said with a smile, "Just now, Lao Qin, Lao Lin, and Duanmu have approved your application for the 9th level of authority." He Guangzi immediately smiled and congratulated, "Li Yi, you will be the real pillar of mankind in the future, shouldering the future of hundreds of billions of people, and deciding the fate of countless people with one word. You must feel the weight of this position." Lu Yansheng was jealous when he saw Qin Longquan and Lin Jianlong pass the application in seconds. He remembered that when he was pulled into the decision-making layer, he also waited for 2 days of research approval before passing. At that time, although he had not yet firmly occupied the first place in the heavenly position, he was also a good player in the top 3 of the heavenly position. He thought to himself, after all, he is a top genius who has achieved such success at the age of 20. Although it may be suspected of forcing things, it is reasonable. Thinking of this, he smiled and said, "Li Yi, there are only 3 decision-making positions in the Xianwei. You are the 4th now. You must work harder to improve your strength. You must at least be as strong as the top 10 in the Xianwei. Do you understand? Otherwise, you will not be able to handle things in the future." Hearing this, He Guangzi's face was strange. It was amazing that Lao Lu didn't understand it yet. He smiled and said, Lao Lu, you have to work hard too. Don't lose face as the number 1 in the Xianwei. Use your wisdom more on things other than fighting. After all, evolution is not just about fighting, it also requires physical and mental adjustments, and you have to see more of the world around you. He wanted to see if his implicit reminder could make Lu Yansheng wake up. Hearing this, Lu Yansheng was surprised and said, Old He, you are really interesting. Look more at the world around you? Haven't we seen enough of the world? He Guangzi shook his head and thought to himself, it seems that there is no need to remind old Lu. No matter how much he is reminded, he can't understand it as well as he can. Li Yu didn't pay attention to Lu Yansheng and He Guangzi, and asked, Deputy Director Zhao, didn't you say that we should explain our long-term plan, short-term goals, and recent tasks? Don't worry, won't your authority be upgraded first? Zhao He smiled and said, let's talk about the long-term plan first. Within 100 years, we have to train more top-level mecha divisions. For example, they can have proficient level fighting skills before the heavenly level, and perfect level fighting skills before the strongest. Only mecha divisions of this level can face fewer troops and achieve stronger results, making other alien races in awe of us. If it is just a race that wins with more people, the aliens will not be afraid, because it means the lack of war potential. In this era of rapid improvement in genetic technology and extremely high population efficiency, low-end combat power can certainly be stacked very high, but it can still only be destroyed by a high-level combat power with one big move. For example, pilots in the middle and high stages of the heavenly rank can already drive divine mechas to launch an attack that will destroy ordinary planets. With this level of attack, what's the use of gathering more ordinary evolvers? So in the future, our first internal affairs goal against aliens is to expand the utilization rate of divine mechas and expand the base of the mecha-endowed population, and the Earth is also the comprehensive genetic evolution experiment site that Lao Qin and I have focused on promoting. We will not allow foreign genes to enter at will and pollute the internal genome. As time goes by, there will be more mecha-endowed populations on the Earth, and our reserve combat power will reach an unprecedented level. By then, it is even possible for one race to suppress several golden races. Hearing this, He Guangzi praised, this plan is indeed far-sighted and planned for the future. Even if disaster is approaching, this is also a core strategy that must not be shaken. Li Yu agrees with this strategy. After all, high-quality talents are scarce in any era. Zhao He continued, the above is the first step of the long-term plan. As for how to implement it and how to execute it, I will not explain it in detail here. If you are interested or want to participate, you can ask me for detailed information later. The second step of the long-term plan is academic. This time, the technology we require to focus on breakthroughs is biotechnology. Although the current genetic technology has made great leaps, Compared with the biotechnology of the fourth era and our current AI and virtual technology, genetic technology is still very backward. The Centennial Talent Plan is currently just equivalent to using a steam engine to promote the plan. I hope to use internal combustion engines or even atomic engines in the future to continuously improve this technology so that we can completely overtake on the curve. After all, there is a limit to cracking divine technology. The most important thing is to truly establish your own system from beginning to end. Although this step is difficult, it must be extremely correct. From the current development data of divine civilization in various eras, this is also confirmed. Even the divine civilization and disasters are two sides of the same coin, and it may not be impossible. If you want to completely get rid of the restrictions of other civilizations without restrictions, you must focus on developing your own things. Li Yi heard this and said curiously, these two steps of the plan do sound important, but is 100 years enough for such technological progress? Zhao He smiled and said, of course, our technological progress did not come out of thin air. We should also learn from the fourth era. After all, when it comes to biotechnology, the fourth era is naturally the strongest, but it's hard to distinguish between reference and cracking, right? Of course, you'll know when you have a chance to go to BioStar. Li Yu nodded and said, since these two steps are long-term plans, what are the short-term goals? Is it to conquer the Star Clan? Zhao He shook his head. Conquering the Star Clan is a short-term task, a task that must be completed. He Guangzi's heart moved, and he asked, from what Deputy Director Zhao said, General Manager Lin has already formulated an overall strategy for conquering the Star Clan. Chapter 316 Target. Hearing He Guangzi's question, Zhao He smiled and said, yes, Lao He, you are still as sharp as ever. That's the fact. Lao Lin has already formulated the core strategy. Next, what you need to do, Lao He, is to prepare a detailed battle plan. He Guangzi said solemnly. Understood, Lu Yansheng said. What about Lao Zhang? We have no clues after interrogating Hang Suo. What should we do? Zhao He said. Li Yi, have you deciphered any other situations in this regard? Li Yi shook his head and said, although Hang Suo knows a lot about the situation of the ancestor of the Star Clan, once it comes to specific abilities, his brain waves will show strange fluctuations, which interfere with my deciphering. I guess that's the backup plan left by the ancestor of the Star Clan. Zhao He pondered and said, it seems that we can only wait for Flame. At this time, Lu Yansheng suddenly had an idea and asked, Li Yi, when you were developing the heritage ruins before, you used the Dream Virtual Mother Machine and the Thought Steel Nails to remove the mysterious thoughts, right? Will this thing work? Li Yi pondered and said, at that time, it was because the essence of the removed body was just that of an upper-level evolver, and the threat was not great. But now it is a Supreme Being like Commander Zhang, with a powerful soul, and may not be easily invaded by the Dream Virtual Mother Machine. Moreover, I am afraid that if it is thought casually, other unpredictable accidents may occur. Plus, that thing is now on Planet 33, which is far away, and the nearest Stargate takes 2 or 3 days to reach. What's more, we currently only have this one Dream Virtual Mother Machine, and it cannot be replicated for the time being, so I'm afraid it will be difficult to deal with. He Guangzi thought for a moment, then said, well, I'll transfer this thing over first, and then gather a group of experts in dreams, souls, and virtualities to concentrate on studying this matter. Old Zhang's matter must be resolved, and this is also to prevent other strong people on our human side from being controlled. After all, abilities similar to those of the ancestors of the Star Clan may be abilities that all resurrectors of the Fifth Era may be able to master. This statement was recognized by everyone. Li Yu said, when the things are transferred here, I will also attend the meeting to see if other experts can come up with other solutions. Although Zhao He felt that there was little hope, he could still give it a try, so he said, that's fine. Then I'll also explain clearly what our short-term goals are, that is to complete the exploration and strategy of the remaining 5 of the 7 major divisions of the Earth within a period of 10 years, as well as the 3 major time and space-time relics of the Time Relics, the Time and Yin Relics, and the Years Relics, as well as the core relics of the Fourth Era, the Xianshu Relics, and the Heritage Relics. These important relics, a total of 5 divisions and 5 relics, are our next key targets. Do you understand why these 10 relics? Lu Yansheng said, because they involve the most secrets. He Guangzi said, because it is related to the advancement to the demigod and quasi-god level. The two people pointed to different answers, and Zhao He smiled and said, yes, both. But the most important thing is that we hope to find a way to advance to demigod within these 10 years, at the same time. It is also to give us humans the confidence to really fight the golden race. After all, we don't have the ability to really compete with a golden race yet. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Yes, according to the intelligence, the golden race is a race with demigods. Although the number of gold-level people in the Star Clan is comparable to that of the golden race, it is not a golden race after all, but a powerful silver race. Although the ancestor of the Star Clan has the strength of a demigod, just one clone can defeat and capture Zhang Shenfen. But he is not a real member of the Star Clan after all, but a resurrected person who has occupied the nest of a magpie, and cannot be regarded as a normal demigod. As a reference for the demigod level, it is probably not possible. But if the demigod level strongman in the golden race has the strength of the clone of the ancestor of the Star Clan, plus the gold level strongman in the clan, I am afraid that it can completely crush humans in high-end combat power. If there is no demigod level strongman to suppress it, the human race's attack on the scorching star field occupied by the Star Clan this time may indeed be in a lot of danger. Li Yi's heart rose a little desire to become stronger. Demigod level, I don't know when he can advance to the heavenly level. Although he believes that once he advances to the heavenly level, his strength will definitely have a shocking leap. But now, it is indeed necessary to continue to accumulate. At this time, Zhao He continued, Li Yi, in short, when you enter the decision-making level, you will be able to transform the Federation according to your own ideas, turn the Federation into what you want it to be. Let's disperse for now and go back to do our own things, wait a few days for the Dream Virtual Mother Machine to be transferred here, and then see if there is any way to help Lao Zhang. It's best not to borrow the power of Flame. Flame is very special. Once she shows up, she is very dangerous. Li Yi asked, is this flame targeted by the aliens because of the special characteristics of her soul, or for other special reasons? Zhao He said, it's very complicated. You only need to know that only when you have the combat power of me or Lao Zhang can you understand the problem of flame a little bit. As for now, knowing too much is harmful and useless. Okay, Li Yi shrugged. Let's all go home for now. Li Yi, today is a gift to you for entering the decision-making level. Come with me, and I'll give you another good thing that can improve your cultivation progress. Zhao He left a message for Li Yi. What Li Yi originally thought at this time was that after returning to his residence, he would see what happened to the batch of deep memory fragments that appeared in the dream plane after this upgrade. But since Zhao He said so, he simply followed him. Soon, the two divine mechas quickly swept out of the 13th underground floor, with fierce flickering flames, all the way to the exit of the god-suppressing prison. He Guangzi stayed behind to arrange manpower and search for possible Hengser clones. Because the entrance and exit of the Mecha of the god-suppressing prison is a transportation channel, it is not convenient for the driver to enter and exit, so the two left the cockpit and took the elevator all the way to the other side of the lunar fortress. The two walked on the conveyor belt, side by side. At this time, Zhao He turned around and said to Li Yi with a smile, you are already very strong now, and you are at the right age. Have you ever thought about getting married and having children? Li Yi was stunned. Did they say that they would give him a treasure that could speed up his cultivation? Why did they suddenly talk about this? He shook his head and said, no, Deputy Director Zhao means that you want me to reproduce offspring as soon as possible. Haha, you have such excellent genes. It would be a pity if you don't have more offspring. I would like to match you with someone. It depends on your interest. Chapter 317 Introduction. Zhao He's words were ambiguous, and Li Yi couldn't help but think more. Commander Zhao, who are you referring to? Zhao He said with a smile, don't ask me who I want to match, ask me who you want. A young talent like you, which girl wouldn't be sentimental? Li Yi laughed awkwardly. Commander Zhao is really a joker. Zhao He said, no, I'm serious. As your body gets stronger, the possibility of a couple conceiving naturally will become lower and lower. And if this kind of heavenly level physical gene is artificially bred, there are very few successful cases. The current cloning limit of our human beings is mainly at the level of primary evolvers. Middle and upper evolvers consume resources, but they can be done, but the cost is 7 or 8 times higher than that of cultivating a higher evolver, so it's not worth it. So the situation of more than 100 Zhang Chaoquan clones that you found in the heritage ruins also shows that our current genetic technology is not only inferior to the 4th era, but actually even inferior to the 5th era. and there is still a lot of room for improvement. Li Yu touched his chin and said, so, the best time to raise children is the heavenly rank? It's just one step higher than genetic technology, and it's also simpler than the strongest raising children themselves. Zhao He nodded and said, yes, if you want to have one, it's best to pick some younger ones, and at least the ones at the peak of the upper rank, which is more suitable. I looked at the records. Isn't there a Ningfiao who is about the same age as you? He is also in the three elements integration and has a good chance of breaking through to the heavenly rank before the age of 35. He happens to be someone you know. How about this? You two should have a good relationship, right? This girl is also Lao He's junior, and they have a good relationship. You can ask him to act as a matchmaker. What do you think? Another figure flashed through Li Yi's mind, and he immediately said with shame, Commander Zhao, why don't we discuss what you want to give me first? Zhao He laughed. Young man, why are you afraid of shame? Or are you not satisfied with Ningfiao? Which one do you want? Why don't you tell me? Li Yu said, Deputy Director Zhao, I think we should wait and see. I still have some time to reach the heavenly rank, so it's not urgent. Zhao He saw Li Yu refused again and again, so he smiled and shook his head, and stopped persuading him. However, although he stopped persuading him, he was slightly moved in his heart, thinking that he would have time to take a look at the high-quality single female mecha masters that Li Yu had met in the past, first to understand Li Yu's taste, and then talk about it. The item that Li Yu got from Zhao He turned out to be a fragment of an SS-level divine nucleus. And it was a divine nucleus of the Gaia God sequence. Although this thing was a fragment, only the size of a watermelon, and there were irregular edges and corners around it, but in terms of quality, it was indeed extraordinary. When Li Yu got it, he felt that the Gaia divine gene in his body was slightly stimulated, and he felt that it was growing and then splitting. It can only be said that it is worthy of being an SS-level divine nucleus. Even if it is just one, it has such an outstanding and extraordinary effect. Zhao He smiled and said, treasure it. The number of SS-level items that we humans currently have is no more than 2 palms, and it is extremely rare. Li Yu expressed his gratitude, and after a few simple words, he separated from Zhao He and went directly back to his personal residence. This interrogation was much faster than expected. It was originally planned to take several days to complete the questioning, but this time with his deciphering ability, it was much faster. Therefore, it only took a few hours to get it done. Now it was a long time before the time agreed with Chen Kai-ongzi. He planned to study the memory fragments of the dream plane on his own first, and then go to Chen Kai-ongzi to continue learning the technique of emptiness. Although he had learned a lot before, he had not learned it as a whole, and he also needed Chen Kai-ongzi, who had already practiced it, to correct him. Residential area of the Moon Fortress. With a click, the smart lock of the access control was opened directly, and Li Yu pushed the door to enter his villa. He took off his clothes with ease and went all the way to the bedroom. Turn off the lights and lie down. Soon, he fell asleep comfortably on his back. Working non-stop these days is indeed tiring. After a while, he appeared in the dream plane, and came to this oil surface where the pits were smashed. The ground of this dream plane is not indestructible, but at least it is difficult to be damaged by ordinary forces. But the memory fragments refreshed this time are heavy enough to smash the ground into pits, which is completely different from the light and foamy state in the past. It can be seen that there must be something more powerful in the memory fragments this time. Last time, he only took a rough look. This time, he planned to be more cautious and find a lighter and lighter one to try. The soil of the dream plane is very smooth, like fine sand. There are grass, moss and other plants around. The touch is also similar to the real grass and moss, and there is no big abnormality. However, after the Pluto was upgraded and infused with the foundation of the God-suppressing prison, the overall ground of the dream plane has undergone some subtle changes. For example, the entire plane has become wider, and the distance between the dome foam and the ground has also increased significantly. I didn't look closely before, but now I have carefully observed it and found clues. While observing, he also found a memory fragment that was the lightest in color, not so deep, and only the size of a goose egg. Then, he integrated it into his body. Buzz! The light and sound in front of him changed immediately, and there seemed to be an infinitely distant sound echoing in front of him. The echo seemed to be made by some mysterious divine artifact, and it had a wonderful penetrating power that resounded throughout the universe. Ling, ling, ling. After 3 sounds, the scene in front of Li Yi began to change. It was a clean and bright classroom. In the classroom, the voice was loud, as if it was the sound of students reading in the morning. And Li Yi only then found that he had become a young armored man named Liming Tu, Yi in the memory he received before in Wudao Shenshin. All perspectives start from this Liming Tu, Yi. His heart moved slightly, and he thought to himself, could it be that these memories I received before, or that memory puzzle, gave me the trigger to connect with the ancient times? And the high-quality divinity received from the God-suppressing prison this time helped me successfully connect with the memories I got last time. In other words, if I accept all these memories, can I get all the clues to crack the mystery of the origin of divinity? Thinking of this, he was quite excited. This shows that his innate ability is indeed amazing, and he can even refresh the memories of the ancient times. Although the conditions for refreshing are more complicated, if you really want to understand something in the past, at least there is one more feasible way. Wait, my innate ability is so magical, but when you think about it carefully, it feels quite similar to this secret book of time, the secret book that can record everything. I just don't know if it can also record parallel worlds. My ability, can it really be related to the secret book of time? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318 Knowledge. According to Zhao He's description, the secret book of time should record everything that happened in the current world. His ability can refresh the memory fragments of the parallel world. Now it has been proved that as long as there is enough high quality and a large amount of divinity, as well as the corresponding connection points, he can even refresh the memories of billions of years ago. Or is it that my innate ability is higher than the secret book of time? While Li Yi was thinking, the scene in front of him began to change. He saw that his incarnation, Don Tu Yi, was called to the stage. Standing next to him was Kathu. The armored man with the green skin on the stage said in the language of the second era, "Congratulations, Yi, you have obtained the qualification to go to the Holy Land for baptism this time. In our entire first laboratory and second laboratory, only you and Kathu have it. You must cherish it," Yi said calmly. "It's my honor, Director. I didn't perform well this time. My results are so much worse than Katya's. I really didn't expect that I would have the opportunity to get this qualification." On the other side, Katya smiled and said, "Yi, you are too modest. Your results are just different from mine in direction. There is no difference between us. In your field, I am far inferior to you." The green armored man laughed and said, "You are all very good. You are the pride of our laboratory. This time when you go to the Holy Land, just publicize your results to everyone as much as possible. Your results are enough to shine for a while and make the future of our armored civilization leap forward again." On the one hand, Yi's overclocking neural network technology can allow us to have a mecha reaction speed comparable to that of the first era. The second aspect is that the puzzle of the first era that Kathu deciphered has helped us understand part of the truth about the destruction of civilization, which is particularly rare. Li Yi saw this memory and immediately understood that the timeline here should be after Kathu deciphered the record of the first era strongman about the lifespan dilemma in the huge ruins. However, according to the previous timeline, Kathu should have died, right? Or is this a memory that happened before that speech? Or is this a parallel world? No, the parallel world billions of years ago seems to be more difficult to refresh if you think about it carefully. Li Yi's heart moved slightly, and he still ruled out the possibility of a parallel world for the time being, and temporarily identified the previous memory as the same timeline and the same world. Of course, the possibility of a parallel world cannot be ruled out, because he lacks a reference point, so he can only identify it as the same development order. At this time, Katya said, "In fact, the part of the puzzle I deciphered is also incomplete. It can only be said that it can initially help us get rid of the control of the gods." Yi shook his head and said, "It's great to be able to do this. The gods enslaved us, stole our souls, bodies, wisdom, knowledge, and civilization, and used soul worms as a guide to control each of our newborns. Without the soul worm control code you deciphered, we might not be so free now." The green armored man laughed and said, Okay, you don't have to continue to flatter. Everyone knows that you are interested in Katya. Don't just talk about these things, you have to take action, understand." As he said, The audience also started to make a fuss. When are you going to confess, Katya, beautiful princess? Don't worry about that silly boy. Look at me more. Amid the laughter of the crowd, Ai's face was red and full of shyness. After a while, he said, I will wait until my achievements surpass Katya's before I confess my love. Katya glanced at Ai and said with a smile, don't bother, Ai, let's get married today. How about we get married before we go to the Holy Land? Ai was stunned. Don't you mind that my research achievements are worse than yours, you idiot? Is this a question of disdain? Katya smiled and said to Ai, and suddenly leaned forward, with a pair of red lips and slightly closed eyes, getting closer and closer. Liu felt Ai's violently beating heartbeat, and felt quite strange in his heart. The outlines of the two figures slowly stuck together, from two figures to one. The laughter and applause from the audience became more intense. At this point, this memory ended and cut to another picture. At this time, Liu saw Liming Tuyu with a bit of fatigue on his face. In front of Ai was a planet that was destroyed into countless stardust fragments. Ai was suspended in the vast starry sky, looking at everything in front of him with an ugly face. At this time, Liu understood that the scene demonstrated in this memory was the scene where the planetary mecha that Ai had prepared for many years was destroyed by the gods. He still remembered that the last memory scene he saw in Guotao Mountain was the scene where Ai was betrayed by an insider, the location of the planetary mecha was discovered, and the gods attacked. It seems that the result is obvious. Ai's achievements were burned and he was finished. However, Liu was also a little surprised. This Ai's body was suspended above the universe, and he didn't feel any discomfort. It can be seen that his strength is guaranteed to be high level. Considering that there may not be the concept of shipbuilding in this era, perhaps Ai's strength is mostly the strongest, or even above. In this way, it is no wonder that Ai is called a saint. In addition to his research, it is probably because of his strength. However, what Liu doesn't understand is that since this planetary mecha has been destroyed, how did Ai escape from the hands of the gods? Did they keep Ai intentionally, or did Ai have some hidden way to escape? When Liu was thinking, Ai's body moved in his perspective, and a rainbow light appeared outside his body, causing him to suddenly disappear in the periphery of the planet that was destroyed into countless fragments. And his perspective followed Ai, flying at high speed. Immediately afterwards, Ai seemed to activate his divinity, directly disturbing the universe in time and space, and actually achieved an effect similar to a jump. Liu felt the countless details in it, and his heart moved. What rich details, I understand. It is these rich time and space details that really make these memory fragments heavy enough to smash the pits in the dream plane. If it were other memory fragments, you would definitely not see this level of knowledge details, although there are many puzzles after this wave. But with his current brain power, he must be able to understand a lot of mysteries. Immediately, he entered the state of self-consciousness without hesitation, and carefully observed all the operating details of Ai, all the manipulation of divinity and characteristics. After a while, he felt that he had a lot of understanding. In particular, he already possessed preliminary spatial characteristics with conceptual features. Based on this, he quickly learned a large number of ways of playing that he had never imagined before, and benefited greatly for a time. Chapter 319 Brain Power. Just this current memory fragment is very beneficial. Our other memory fragments also related to the characteristics and details of time and space. Liu was amazed and was also stepping up his learning to record all of Ai's operations. However, after 4 or 5 minutes of demonstration, this memory suddenly stagnated and disappeared directly. He realized that this memory fragment had been integrated. Sure enough, the change in the essential weight of the memory fragment is still due to the rich details of the characteristics of time and space, but in terms of the length of the memory, it is about the same as the conventional total length, Liu understood. But this is not a bad thing. After all, the weight and details this time are indeed surprising. And this time he has more deep-toned memory fragments waiting for him to absorb and integrate. Immediately, he exited the integration state and continued to operate, absorbing one by one. Sure enough, the memory fragments that appeared later were also silhouettes of Ai and Katya's daily life. Some of the content also involves things that humans have not yet understood. For example, the overall social outlook and customs of the armored people in the Second Era, and even the core of some divine technologies. However, it is worth mentioning that the era in which Ai is, according to Liu's judgment, should only be the early stage of the Second Era. That is, The armored people of this era still need to fight with various divine creatures left over from the first era for survival resources. The so-called gods are the leaders of these divine creatures who have wisdom and reach the top level of strength. These divine creatures did not form a civilization, but were born after the disaster of the first era and continue to survive. They are the survivors connecting the first and second eras. Of course, these are just the cognition of the armored people. Whether it is the truth or not, Li Yu can only temporarily regard it as true. After all, when Kershui revealed, or when he explored the holy ruins last time, the truth he discovered, Li Yu did not see it with his own eyes. Unfortunately, the memory fragments absorbed after that were scattered a lot, lacking coherence and logic. Basically, only the lighter colors have relatively coherent pictures. However, the memory fragments with deep colors occupy the majority. At this moment, he is like getting a large number of memory puzzles. He needs to absorb all the hundreds of memory fragments in front of him to complete the genes of these ancient times. It is also possible to obtain the complete life stories of Ai and Kershui. When Li Yu was awakened by Chen Kai-ongzi's communication, he realized that he had slept for a whole day and a night. It took me nearly 24 standard hours to process just 5 memory fragments. Li Yu's mind was unusually groggy. This feeling was like the physical pain caused by continuous brain hyperextraction. Checking the communicator, he found that there were 7 communications from Chen Kai-ongzi, 1 every hour. Oh no, I missed the appointment. He shook his head, adjusted his breathing, activated the deformation feature, and enlarged the space inside his skull a little, which finally relieved the pain in his head. Is my brain growing to its limit? He was slightly surprised. Could it be that when he was digesting those ancient memories, he subconsciously used brain hyperextraction because of the heavy load? And the long-term and continuous use of brain hyperextraction finally caused the qualitative change of brain growth? He closed his eyes slightly and quickly did some mental calculations. It's at least 30% faster than before. If I concentrate, I estimate that it can be increased by another 60% to 70%. He was delighted. Brain power is the most difficult to improve in evolution. If a heavenly evolver can withstand dozens of times more gravity than an ordinary human, it is equivalent to dozens of times increase in physical fitness. Then the brain power can only increase 5 or 6 times at most, and the highest is no more than 10 times. His basic brain power is already comparable to that of the strongest, and with all kinds of knowledge and skills to optimize the operating efficiency of brain power, the effect he exerts is naturally far beyond that of ordinary strongest. Therefore, with his current foundation increased by several times, the amount of increase is naturally amazing. Converted into specific performance, that is, reaction speed, the level of controlling the divine mecha, the activation speed of those small skills, the speed of deciphering various languages, observation efficiency, etc., will be further raised to a higher level. If I have touched the threshold of the brain power of the strongest before, then now, I can be comparable to Deputy Minister Zhao, right? Or even if there is a slight gap in the basics, it is not far away. He evaluated in his mind and felt that this brain transformation brought a lot of benefits. Of course, this is just his estimate. He only judged the actual brain power of these people based on their usual performance. Maybe these strong people have strong brain power, but lack the skills to use their brain power, so they gave him the illusion that the gap is not big. But no matter what, with Li Yi's current brain skills, his current basic brain power is enough to produce a large enough increase. After taking stock in his mind, the drowsiness in his head also went away a little, and he was much more sober. Immediately, he called Chen Kai-ongzi back. Did something happen to you, or did you forget our appointment? After Chen Kai-ongzi finished speaking, Li Yu immediately apologized. Instructor, I'm sorry, I just had a breakthrough and I forgot the time. Do you know how worried I was just now? What? Breakthrough? On the other side of the communication, Chen Kai-ongzi wanted to say a few words to Li Yi. But when he heard that Li Yi had a breakthrough, he immediately forgot about it and asked in surprise, You have a breakthrough again? What did you break through? Li Yi blinked. As expected of an instructor who only wanted to become stronger, when he heard about the breakthrough, the broken appointment seemed to be unimportant. Instructor, it's not the divine gene, it's something else. Is it the tiger strike style? No. Is it a kind of virtual technique? Haven't you learned it all yet? Chen Kai-ongzi asked questions like a machine gun. Li Yi smiled and said, Instructor, don't be in a hurry. How about we meet now? I can try out some of my new insights for you, okay? I want to see. Just a moment later, the two quickly found the last training ground to meet. At this moment, Chen Kai-ongzi was wearing a loose cotton uniform, slippers on her feet, revealing her white and neat ankles, white jade-like toes, and standing loosely in front of Li Yi. "Come, show me your new insights." Li Yi smiled and said, "Instructor, but before that, you have to change into training suit first? Otherwise, I'm afraid that your clothes will burst by accident." "Change clothes?" Chen Kai-ongzi looked down and realized that she was in a hurry just now and didn't change into training clothes. Her face suddenly turned slightly red. "Okay, I'll go change it now. You wait, and take this opportunity to brew your new understanding for me." Chapter 320 Practice. Chen Kai-ongzi stepped into the locker room. She moved gracefully and quickly taking off her soft clothes, revealing her smooth body. Standing on the cold ground, her skin was so white that it seemed to be glowing. She looked at the mirror for a few times, and her eyes showed a thoughtful look. "I almost lost my composure. Li Yu's talent is unfathomable. As an instructor, I can't fall too far behind. No, I must show my skills in front of him. If I don't scare him, I won't be able to raise my face in the future." As the thought flashed, Chen Kai-ongzi had already changed into her training clothes and stepped out. "Li Yu, let's start." Chen Kai-ongzi walked out again. Her eyes were full of light, her gaze was firm, and her face was tense, as if she had made up her mind. Li Yu was moved when he saw Chen Kai-ongzi's renewed spirit and energy, and thought to himself, as expected of an instructor, she can be as good as she is in wartime after changing into training clothes. But why is she so sullen? Thinking so in his heart, he moved quickly and suddenly performed the opening move of Tiger Strike style. Then, he slowly practiced the other 8 moves of Tiger Strike style. As he moved, the special characteristics were also added to this set of divine fighting skills. Boom! Above his head, a colorful tiger condensed immediately. This tiger was more than 100 meters tall and seemed to be real. The moment it appeared, the surrounding space seemed to be torn apart, revealing a pitch-black space-time rift. For a moment, a huge sense of oppression pressed down. The entire training ground seemed to be wrapped in this huge force and trembled constantly. Countless air currents were also trembling constantly, emitting huge wind patterns, flowing everywhere. Chen Kai-ongzi was speechless for a while. This height and this degree of influence on space are much stronger than Li Yu's operation the day before yesterday. It is more ferocious and more intimidating. Didn't you say that the Tiger Strike flow has not been broken through? This is a new way of playing that I have comprehended. It uses the characteristics of space to strengthen the strength of the Tiger of Divine Will. Strictly speaking, it is not a breakthrough of the Tiger Strike flow, but a derivative skill of the Tiger Strike flow. This move is one of the uses that Li Yu learned from AE's operation. Come on, instructor, use your ultimate move to the fullest and let me try the effect of this move, Li Yu said with great interest. Chen Kai-ongzi looked at the huge Tiger of Divine Will in front of her and shook her head. "I can't do this move of yours, so don't humiliate yourself." She was not interested. She originally wanted to use her clone to superimpose her own Tiger of Divine Will to shock Li Yi and let him feel her amazing performance. But now looking at the mighty power in front of her that was enough to tear the space, she knew that it was completely incomparable. Although the space torn by the giant Tiger of Divine Will was not large, it could tear the space after all. In terms of power, it is probably enough to destroy the C-class mecha. It can be seen that even if Li Yi does not control the divine mecha at this moment, he still has a strong combat power and has truly reached the level of the top 10 of the heavenly rank. As for me, it is better for me to honestly hand over the technique of planting the void to you and let you evolve faster, with your talent. As long as you can practice the technique of planting the void, I believe you will be able to complete the accumulation before the heavenly rank as soon as possible and complete your own unique evolutionary path. Li Yu saw the disappointment that Chen Kai-ongzi could not hide in his eyes, and his heart was also distressed. He thought to himself, it seems that this really irritated the instructor. Yes, she is so strong-willed. It must be hard for her to be surpassed by a student like me so easily. Just as he thought about this, he saw Chen Kai-ongzi in front of him had put away the disappointment in his eyes, grinning at Li Yu and said, "You kid, although your strength is indeed far beyond mine, you also defeated me in my most proud trick, but I won't give up on myself from now on. Don't say anything to comfort me. From now on, I will seriously teach you the art of emptiness. Li Yu, don't slack off." Hearing this, Li Yu was speechless. This is Chen Kai-ongzi. The so-called disappointment is just an emotion that passes in the blink of an eye. With her strong will and perseverance, this so-called blow must not be a big deal. Thinking of this, Li Yu immediately laughed. Slack off? Instructor, please watch my performance carefully next time. He was full of confidence. With his brain power, spiritual realm, and various high-level skills at this moment, what else can't he learn easily? Fuck, Li Yu looked constipated. He didn't expect that he would fail. Moreover, he failed in his massive and complex subconscious mind. As Chen Kaiyongzi had taught before, the first step of the technique of planting the void is to extract order from the disorder of the subconscious mind. At first, he thought that after his soul was cleaned by the vacuum purification technique, the redundant memory had been eliminated and it was extremely refreshing. After all, his reaction speed improved by leaps and bounds, and he broke through from the previous upper level to the high level of the heavenly level in an instant, relying on the large amount of redundant memory cleaning. But when he tried to go deep into his mind and dive deep into the subconscious according to the method of the technique of planting the void, he found a problem. The depths of his subconscious mind were like the vast ocean, vast and boundless, dangerous and remote, mysterious, deep, and full of all kinds of subconscious turbulence. Just like the whirlpool in the deep sea, if he was not careful, his main consciousness would be swept away, and it would take a long time to return to the normal wandering state. Yes, the subconscious is also the most fundamental thing of the soul. It is essentially the lowest level of a person, and its volume is at least dozens of times larger than the ego. It takes me so much effort to clean up redundant memories. It is reasonable that the subconscious is so vast and unfathomable, but in this way, won't I be able to use the technique of emptiness, or, once I can sort out a certain amount of order, this technique of emptiness can be accomplished in one fell swoop, avoiding the situation like Lao Chen, who needs more than 10 years to produce 2 or 3 auxiliary clones. Also, after the clone is planted, whether it will have self-awareness is also a question, and the amount needs to be controlled. Also, swimming in this subconscious will actually continue to blur my main consciousness and make me lose my mind. It seems that I can't stay in the depths of the subconscious for too long. If I stay for too long, I will easily get lost and become a vegetable, wandering in the depths of the subconscious. Li Yu kept flowing and observing. Until more than half an hour later, the main consciousness was gradually infiltrated by the subconscious and became more and more drowsy. He knew that something was wrong, so he kept rising, and returning to the surface of consciousness. Hualala. With a mysterious sound coming from the depths of his soul, he slowly opened his eyes. Opposite him was Chen Kaiyongzi, with a bit of surprise in her eyes. You can dive deep for more than half an hour at a time. Your main consciousness is quite strong. However, after diving for so long, why do you seem to have gained nothing? Chapter 321 Attempt. Li Yu's mouth twitched, he coughed lightly and said, the instructor is really accurate, I really didn't gain much this time. Chen Kaiyongzi looked at Li Yu with suspicion. You kid want to fool me again? Have you actually secretly solved the stage of refining order from disorder, and are waiting for me here? No, I really didn't this time. Li Yu shrugged and spread his hands, looking helpless. He didn't explain the reason. After all, he couldn't say that his subconscious mind was as deep as the sea and too huge, so it was not easy to succeed, right? It always felt like an excuse. Chen Kaiyongzi said, okay, it's okay. You can dive so deep for so long. Even if it doesn't work this time, it will probably work a few more times. At that time, I was able to dive to this depth, and I tried for several years before I could reach this level of persistence. Li Yu shook his head and said, I'm afraid I can't do it yet. I guess I have to practice for a while. He knew that he hadn't dived to the deepest point yet, and it would probably take several days, or even longer, to find the real depth of his subconscious mind. Fortunately, this time was not without gains. The technique of this kind of emptiness at least allowed him to master the method of subconscious diving. With just this one in and out, the main consciousness seemed to have been cleansed and became more pure and natural. In terms of the effect of clearing redundant memories, it was much stronger than the vacuum purification method. Although he didn't have much redundant memories at present, he used the vacuum purification method to keep his soul tidy. But he could also clearly feel that the seeding technique was more effective in improving the strength of consciousness. Of course, the two were not incompatible in terms of function, but each had its own strengths. The vacuum purification method was helpful in improving the overall soul strength, and the first step of the seeding technique, the subconscious deep dive method, could help him strengthen the main consciousness. The soul's strength is overall strength, while the main consciousness is core strength, which avoids the phenomenon of uneven strength and backlash when splitting in the future. Moreover, a strong main consciousness has other benefits, that is, it is not easy to be confused by various illusion characteristics. For example, those who have made their souls strong as a whole through evolution, but their soul cores are weak, are easily dealt with by illusions, or they are shaken in battle, their judgments are not firm enough, etc. In essence, it is better for the two to go hand in hand than to walk on one leg. Thinking of this, Li Yu also understood why Chen Kai-ongzi was so suitable for the technique of emptiness. Perhaps, it was because Chen Kai-ongzi's obsession with fighting and revenge was particularly strong that her main consciousness was much stronger than others, which allowed her to survive the subconscious dive and extract order from disorder to complete the first step. Thinking of this, Li Yu felt ambitious. Even if my subconscious is much broader than others, it can't be a reason for my failure in cultivation. Before, I boasted in front of Lao Chen that I could do it quickly. Immediately, after a short rest, he said, "Instructor, I want to continue to try the subconscious dive. Please help me keep an eye on it." Chen Kai-ongzi smiled slightly. "Don't worry, I will definitely keep an eye on you. Subconscious deep diving is not absolutely safe. There is also the possibility of losing the main consciousness during this step of cultivation. Therefore, having a second person to watch over and keep an eye on the situation at all times can also prevent some accidents." Li Yu nodded, calmed his mind again, and slowly entered the state of subconscious deep diving. At the same time, in the Zhenshin prison, He Guangzi summoned a group of heavenly Mecha masters to conduct a sweeping search around Zhenshin prison. Hengzer's final method of escaping by splitting his body was indeed daunting. Over the past 2 days, the Mecha masters have been searching all over Zhenshin prison, but they found nothing. He Guangzi was standing in the central control room at this moment, checking the previous monitoring records while talking to the artificial soul in the main control room. It was this artificial soul, which was similar to human AI technology, that called this place Zhenshin prison. Therefore, humans also adopted this name, and it was usually abbreviated as Zhen. This Zhen has mastered the human language and communicated with He Guangzi with the magnetic voice of a mature middle-aged uncle. In the early days, before He Guangzi entered the border star and became the general guarding the border, he was very familiar with this Zhen. At this moment, He Guangzi said, "Zhen, you said that you can control more than 98% of the entire Zhenshin prison, but why can't you find any trace of Hengzer?" Zhen replied, "Is it possible that this guy didn't escape at all? Has he been cleaned up by you?" He Guangzi shook his head and said, "No, this guy must have some means to hide the truth and at least one of his bodies has left." Zhen said, "Why do you think so? Do you have evidence?" He Guangzi shook his head, "I don't have evidence, but I have this intuition." "You don't understand, I was born with a stronger intuition, and the other party is probably not out of this Henshin prison yet. I guess he is not familiar with the terrain and has wasted time. So, you must help me find the other party." Zhen said, "Okay, since you insist on looking for him, then I will spend more soul resources to look for him. I will dig 3 feet into the ground to find him for you." He Guangzi said, "Well, thank you for your hard work, Zhen." Zhen said, "It must be very hard. Just remember to feed me more of those divine strong men. Although you have invested a large number of divine strong men in the past few days, each of them was beaten half crippled. The divine resources I can absorb are really limited." He Guangzi, "There is no way. We can't keep strong men in good condition to cause trouble." Zhen said, "I envy you humans. You can move freely and don't have to be trapped in the god-suppressing prison." He Guangzi said, "You live longer than us, and I envy you." Zhen said, "If you are willing, you can also become one of the management souls of the god-suppressing prison. In this way, you can also live for a long time, so that I will have a companion." Haha, that's a good relationship. When my lifespan reaches the top, maybe I can consider it. You have to remember that this is a special privilege I have only for you. I won't give it to others even if they beg me." Hearing this, He Guangzi's heart moved, and said, "Then are you an artificial soul, or the soul of a living intelligent creature?" Zhen said, "Strictly speaking, I was originally an intelligent tool made in the first era, drowsy and confused. It was not until the 5th era that I met a very powerful soul master, and I was able to break away from the tool state and become an intelligent soul with a unique existence." Soul master, yes, this soul master is a master of playing with souls. It was also he who pioneered the fifth era's technology of turning the virtual into the real, artificial soul breeding technology, and planting virtual clones, etc. Li Guangzi frowned. You mean, the art of planting the virtual? He remembered this. It seemed that during the Xianheng Star War 18 years ago, an ancient floating corpse was found in the Stardust Corridor. Someone on the floating corpse was taught this technology by the floating corpse. Yes, this is a very well-known technology in the fifth era. It was once widely circulated, but later I heard that this technology was proven to have some major hidden dangers. Only a small number of people can practice it, so it has gradually been lost. Chapter 322, Sparring. He Guangzi said, hidden dangers? What are they? Isn't it normal that only a small number of people can practice? Jen slowly said, no, it's not what you think. The so-called hidden dangers, on the one hand, refer to the huge soul self, that is, what you humans call the subconscious. Compared with the main consciousness, this thing is too huge. It is easy to make the practitioner lose the main consciousness when taking the first step, and become what you call a vegetable. Of course, the main thing in this regard is to do a good job of avoidance, which is not bad. The biggest one is that after the kind of virtual technique is practiced, the clones are differentiated, and the speed of evolution is indeed very fast. But when it is time to cross the Great Realm, it must be reunited, and if the clone encounters an accident before the unity, is destroyed, or is injured, it will naturally delay the practitioner for a longer time. Therefore, to overcome the hidden dangers, either you have to hide the clone very well so that it is not discovered by external enemies, or try to practice in the early stage of practicing to break through to the Great Realm. If you practice when you are close to breaking through to the Great Realm, then if there is a chance, it will be more trouble than gain. He Guangzi nodded slowly. Your hidden danger is not completely unsolvable, it's just that the risk needs to be controlled. If there are hidden dangers in the content of cultivation itself, then there is a real problem. By the way, what is the specific name of this soul master? Jen said. I only know that he is called the saint's favored one in the world. He Guangzi heard this and suddenly laughed. I asked you about various things in the past before, but you never mentioned them once. Why are you willing to say so much now? Jen said. Haha, it's normal. I have seen the huge changes in the god-suppressing prison and the foundation of the Pluto god this time. The fact that such a powerful person can appear in your clan proves that the strength of your civilization is becoming stronger and stronger. This performance is enough for me to recognize your civilization. Of course, it is not a complete recognition. When you show the strength of the corresponding level, I will tell you more. He Guangzi's eyes moved. It turned out that it was Li Yi's movement that changed Jen's attitude, so he laughed and said, you are really interesting. I fed you with powerful divinities, but you refused to say it. But someone emptied the celestial god foundation of the essence of the god-suppressing prison, and you are willing to say it? Jen said as a matter of course, of course. After all, if a race does not even have a person with the potential to become a quasi-god or even a demigod, then what is the point? It will not survive for long. Only the race that is strong and has the strength to survive forever is the most worthy race for me to follow. You mean, Li Yi is a person with the potential to become a demigod? Jen said. You mean the pilot of the Pluto Mecha? He doesn't have the potential to become a demigod. He has the potential to become a quasi-god. Quasi-god. There was a flash of shock in He Guangzi's eyes. Why is it the potential of a quasi-god? How did you see that? Jen laughed and said, it's a very simple truth. In our world, whether it is a demigod or a quasi-god, the soul must be strong to drive the evolution of the body. Pure physical evolution can also promote and nourish the soul, but this is too long, just like scratching an itch through a shoe. It may not be ineffective, but the effect must be at a meager level. So, having a strong soul potential is the core. He Guangzi touched his chin and said, in other words, you can directly see his soul potential, so you judge that he has the possibility of advancing to a quasi-god. Jen said, no, I can't see it. It's just that he can inherit the foundation accumulated by Xingyu for so many eras. The load obtained by inheriting this foundation is not the load of the physical body, but more of the load of the soul. It's just that the load here is milder than the load of the quasi-god level Mecha. Therefore, those who can continue to bear it show that the resilience and plasticity of their souls are higher. This is why I believe that he has the potential of a quasi-god. He Guangzi smiled and said, I see. How long will it take for this potential to transform into the real realm? Time. No, you should ask about probability. Jen said indifferently. Potential is potential. To truly transform it into reality, the degree of development of various resources in your current era is still slightly low. It is difficult to support a new generation of quasi-gods. We can only say that there are some possibilities. Compared with some other people, the success rate will naturally be higher. He Guangzi narrowed his eyes slightly. The degree of development of resources? What does this mean? Does it mean the excavation of those ruins? Jen said, this is also part of it. But the most important thing is naturally divinity. Divinity is infinite and mysterious. It is the foundation of becoming a god. How can you humans understand it at the current level? Think about it carefully. The strongest of you humans currently have a poor understanding of divinity. They can only mechanically play with the characteristics of divinity. When the disaster comes, they will inevitably be unable to fight back. He Guangzi wanted to ask again, but Jen refused to say anything about this topic. Let's stop talking about this topic. I have already found the trace of this hangser. Don't you want to learn more about him? Hearing Jen's words, He Guangzi was immediately shocked and said, is my prediction correct? Yes, and the other party is about to find the exit now. You should hurry up. 3 days passed in a flash. During these 3 days, Li Yi and Chen Kaiyongzi were together almost every day. The main action of being together was of course to try to plant a void. Of course, in just 3 days, there is naturally no substantial result. Until now, he has not completely dived to the extreme depth of his subconscious. Fortunately, the cleansing effect of the main consciousness obtained during these 3 days of deep diving is not bad, which is more or less a gain. But no matter what, the boast of quickly learning the method of planting the void was slapped in the face in front of Chen Kaiyongzi. Because of this, Chen Kaiyongzi laughed at him many times in these 3 days. This also made Li Yi secretly determined to get the method of planting the void as soon as possible and beat Lao Chen hard. In addition, during the 3 days, when he was free, he went to the dream plane to absorb those ancient relics and the use and operation skills of various space-time characteristics. In his mind, the control of space-time belongs to a separate skill tree. It is a skill system that is more complex and advanced than the divine control and divine character fighting skills. Although he has acquired a lot of application skills from those memories, he feels that he is still far from getting started. He probably needs to absorb these deep-colored memory fragments. However, because these memory fragments are very heavy, so even if it takes a long time to absorb one, the gain in soul strength is obviously many times stronger than the effect of absorbing ordinary memory fragments for a whole day. In just 3 days, he felt that his soul strength has increased a lot. He estimated that the soul surplus for the divine gene has probably increased by 7 or 8 pieces, reaching about 140 pieces. Of course, this is just his estimate based on experience, and he has not used any measuring equipment to measure it. But with the current refinement of his main consciousness and his subconscious, the accuracy of his estimate is probably not low. In short, except for the fact that the art of void is still at the first level, the progress in other aspects is not bad. Of course, another gain is the time book, which he has kept close to his body and is waiting to be activated. With this thing, his physical defense and attack power will be raised to a higher level. Of course, the attack power mainly reflects the ability of the spiral rainbow bridge to trap enemies. In critical moments, directly activating the conceptualized spatial characteristics and gravitational characteristics can greatly activate this legendary god-level prop. Although it is only a small part of the god-level prop, its ability is naturally not to be underestimated. In the previous physical state, if Hangsuer had not faced the faceless siege of a group of A-level high-level mechas, he would not have been so easily forced to split his body and flee in embarrassment. As for the divine gene, because he had condensed too much in a short period of time before, his physical body just reached a growth platform. At present, it is estimated that it will take a little more digestion for 1 or 2 days before it can begin to breed new divine genes. At this moment, in the gravity training field, Li Yi and Chen Kaiyongzi are fighting in close combat. The two slender and fit bodies fought quite lively under high gravity, and the sound of clapping between their bodies was endless. After a series of failed attempts at the technique of emptiness, the two wanted to change their rhythm and take a rest. So Chen Kaiyongzi simply proposed to practice in a gravity field of 85 times without using divinity or any characteristics, and to have a pure physical exercise. Generally speaking, it is very simple for human technology to achieve 10 times gravity evenly, and the cost of power loss has been controlled to a very low level. Therefore, The human main ship special class has the conditions to arrange AI-controlled gravity training for so many people at the same time to improve the foundation of the physical body and enhance the potential for evolution. However, when the gravity multiple reaches more than 20 times, the loss will begin to show an exponential upward trend. Therefore, the 85-fold gravity training field requires a lot of power and energy, as well as equipment loss. 1 hour requires 1,200 war merits. Under normal circumstances, few people will reach this intensity. But Li Yi is now wealthy and has a discount for the 9th level authority. He only needs to pay 120 war merits per hour, which is not a pressure for him at all. By the way, the gravity tolerance limit of the upper evolutionary is generally between 30 and 32 times, and the gravity limit of the 3 and 1 is generally between 32 and 40 times. From the first to the third stage of the heavenly position, the gravity limit of each stage increases by about 10 times. From the fourth stage onwards, the gravity limit of each stage increases by about 15 times. 85 times gravity is almost the tolerance limit of the fourth stage of the heavenly position. After the war with the Star Tribe ended, Chen Kai-Ongzi has almost condensed a new heavenly position characteristic in the past few days, reaching the fourth stage of the heavenly position and possessing the fourth stage of the physical foundation. It can be seen that with a clone increasing the efficiency of cultivation, the increase brought to her by the same actual war should not be underestimated. Although Li Yi's divine gene condensation speed is much faster than Chen Kai-Ongzi, when he learned that Chen Kai-Ongzi advanced to the fourth stage of the heavenly position so quickly, he still envied the effect of the seeding technique. Chen Kai-Ongzi was just bored and said to Li Yi, "My achievements accumulated over more than 10 years are not as good as your progress in a few days. You don't need to be envious." As a result, the two of them quickly engaged in a hot battle. The fierce physical struggle soon made Chen Kai-Ongzi blush, his skin became hot, and he began to sweat profusely. It was okay for Li Yi to fight fiercely under 85 times the gravity. But the pressure on Chen Kai-Ongzi's internal organs, muscles, and bones was really not small. After all, Li Yi's physical foundation has reached the 6th level now, which is much higher than Chen Kai-Ongzi. At the same time, Chen Kai-Ongzi also needs to concentrate on guarding against Li Yi's attack. Therefore, after exercising for more than half an hour, her body became hotter and hotter. The sweat steaming from her body was immediately absorbed by gravity and fell to the ground before it evaporated for a long time, flowing on the ground. With Li Yi's fighting skills 2.5 levels higher than Chen Kai-Ongzi, he naturally kept more than one trick. Accompanying Chen Kai-Ongzi to exercise like this is purely to thank and compensate her for her passionate guidance and patient care for the past 3 days. After all, he was practicing the art of emptiness alone, so he still had to prevent the risk of his main consciousness getting lost in his subconscious. Pa. On the field, Chen Kai-Ongzi suddenly approached Li Yi and hit Li Yi repeatedly. It was the tiger descending from the mountain style of the 9 tiger strikes. The so-called tiger descending from the mountain, leaping and rushing, shocking the forest, roaring for thousands of miles, and shocking the soul. Although this move did not contain divine power, it clearly contained a trace of extremely subtle divine power, which was really amazing. Under 85 times gravity, the airflow was heavy and the wind was difficult to make, but this move still brought out a sharp whistle, just like a colorful tiger with bared fangs and claws appearing in front of him. Seeing this, Li Yi's eyes moved slightly, and he thought to himself, this technique of emptiness is really good. Old Chen relies on this. Even though his fighting skills are still far from perfection, and are far inferior to the force of flowing water, he can still show the wonder of God's will and increase his combat power. Obviously, Chen Kai-Ongzi also felt that Li Yi was holding back during the battle. She was unwilling to give up, and kept gritting her teeth and making moves. She also vaguely grasped some of the wonderful use of God's will. For a time, her attacks became fierce again. Li Yi was also happy to see this. Chen Kai-Ongzi's progress was not without help to him. Observing the process of a person with master-level fighting skills walking out of his own way and gradually moving towards perfection, for him, it can also allow him to reconfirm his past foundation and re-strengthen his fighting foundation. In particular, Chen Kai-Ongzi also used this technique of emptiness to master some of the essence of God's will in advance. Li Yi observed the whole process and naturally benefited a lot. He felt that he had some insights on how to enter the realm of God's will in the future. Boom. After fighting for more than half an hour, Chen Kai-Ongzi was finally exhausted and was knocked out of the gravity training field by Li Yi's punch. Outside the gravity field, Chen Kai-ongzi felt a huge force coming from her chest, and her body flew backwards close to the ground. The training suit was broken by the huge force and had several holes, directly revealing her white flesh. Moreover, when the momentum subsided, she only felt her body trembling, her blood stagnating, and she couldn't move at all. Helpless, she activated her divinity and tried to soothe the blood up and down her body. But even so, it still took several minutes for her body to get out of the stiff state and slowly stand up. Snap! Several pieces of training suits fell to the ground. Chen Kai-ongzi lowered her head and found that a large area of white was exposed on her shoulders, collarbones, and abdomen. What kind of skill is this? It can make me lie still for several minutes? But you know what, after recovery, it feels quite comfortable. She was surprised. Chapter 323 Comfortable. Comfortable, Li Yi blinked. This was just an ordinary attack that he used with a Zhen skill. Although the force was not weak, it was also deliberately hitting Chen Kai-ongzi's blood vessels, penetrating her body with millimeter-level force, making her stiff. But it actually made Chen Kai-ongzi feel a little comfortable, which was unexpected. Could it be? Li Yi's heart moved, and he said, "Instructor, if it's convenient, I will check your body." Check your body? What do you want to do? Chen Kai-ongzi glanced at Li Yi suspiciously. Well, I suspect that the instructor's physique is quite special. I want to see the specific impact of the move just now on your body, Li Yi said seriously. Seeing Li Yi's serious expression, Chen Kai-ongzi thought for a moment and said, "How are you going to check? I will penetrate the instructor's body with my subtle force, because my subtle force can transmit vibrations between millimeters and produce resonance effects on tiny substances. Then, I can sense the feedback and confirm the specific situation." Speak human language. Chen Kai-ongzi raised his eyebrows. Subtle force, is that a higher level of fighting skills? Li Yi said in a deep voice, "The principle is not important. Anyway, do you believe me, instructor?" Chen Kai-ongzi pouted her red lips. "Okay, I don't think you will deceive me casually, so I will check you. If I can't find out 1, 2, 3, 4, I will be angry." Li Yi smiled and said, "Don't worry, instructor, if my estimate is correct, maybe you are quite suitable for a new trick I created." He didn't elaborate and walked up directly. The distance between the two quickly closed. At this time, Li Yi's breath was enough to touch Chen Kai-ongzi. Chen Kai-ongzi felt a tingling sensation when the breath blew to her ears. She raised her head slightly and looked at Li Yi, who was half a head taller than her. At this time, Li Yi was slightly sweating after the 85 times gravity activity, and his sweat was steaming out of his body with his personal scent. Feeling the strange smell in the breath, like orchid musk, like zimu, like fragrant grass, Chen Kai-ongzi's face could not help but blush slightly. Li Yi smelled so good? Chen Kai-ongzi was surprised to find that even Li Yi's sweat was so sweet. She was surprised and thought to herself, is this the perfect physique brought by the second limit breaking? It's really amazing. Not only that, he also has many kinds of divine genes. Perhaps it is this diversity that makes Li Yi's sweat smell much better than ordinary people, and has the same appeal as a perfect creature. Well, I really want to smell it a few more times. Oops, am I being too rude? Be reserved, don't let Li Yi look down on me. Thinking of this, Chen Kai-ongzi, who originally wanted to take a deep breath, regained her elegance, with a smile on her lips and a slightly bright look in her eyes, watching Li Yi walking over. Although the two of them often had hand-to-hand combat training in the past, to be honest, there were only a few occasions where they were so close after such intense training. After all, under normal circumstances, when sweating violently, the body is in a period of rapid heat consumption. At this time, the best action should be to enter the nutrition cabin to enhance the effect of this training. However, this time, due to Li Yi's discovery, and therefore, after this gravity hand-to-hand combat training, the two of them were still so close. Li Yi naturally noticed the change in Chen Kai-ongzi's face. Logically speaking, if he wanted to know Chen Kai-ongzi's thoughts, he could use microelectric characteristics to sense Chen Kai-ongzi's brain waves at any time, and then quickly decipher them with a perfect level deciphering ability. In this way, not to mention Chen Kai-ongzi's deep thoughts, but her superficial thoughts can still be easily captured and understood. But he did not think of abusing this ability. After all, they were acquaintances, and it would be bad if he knew too much of the other party's messy thoughts. Unless he encountered an interrogation link or encountered a vicious criminal like Wu Huanling, he would not use this ability casually. Therefore, although he saw the subtle changes in Chen Kaiyongzi's expression at that moment, he did not think too much, but was concentrating on thinking about which part to start from during the next inspection. He punched Chen Kaiyongzi in the chest before, so this time, let's start from the chest first. This thought flashed through his mind, and he had already punched out lightly. This punch seemed to be as soft and weak as an ordinary human girl, without a strong fist in amazing speed. It pushed forward slowly, hitting Chen Kaiyongzi's chest under her surprised eyes. Boom! The soft flesh shook slightly, emitting pudding-like fluctuations. Immediately afterwards, a very subtle force quickly flowed through Chen Kaiyongzi's body. She felt like she was electrocuted at this moment, and her body immediately became numb. Li Yi observed intently, and even reached out to put his hand on the whiteness of Chen Kaiyongzi's shoulder, directly touching the warmth, feeling the resonance of the subtle force transmitted back. With his current subtle perception, he quickly got the result he wanted and fell into deep thought. 3 minutes later, Chen Kaiyongzi had not yet come out of the stiff state, and even mobilizing her divinity was useless. She could only stare at Li Yi with her eyes and blink continuously. After a while, Li Yi saw Chen Kaiyongzi's eyes as if he had realized something, and reached out and clapped his hands. Snap! Chen Kaiyongzi's body shook slightly, and immediately came out of this strong stiff state. She stretched her limbs and looked at Li Yi fiercely. Boy, did you deliberately avoid looking at me just now? Li Yi spread his hands and said innocently, No, instructor, I was just too focused on thinking for a moment. Huh? Do you think I will believe you? With the strength of your soul, you can easily feel the slightest disturbance in the outside world even if you are concentrating on doing things, right? Moreover, as a fighting master's instinct, it is also a basic skill to always pay attention to changes in the outside world, right? Then is it possible that I was not on guard against the instructor, so I ignored it? Not on guard? Chen Kaiyongzi paused, the fierceness in her eyes faded, her eyeballs flickered to the left frequently, she coughed lightly and said, Okay, I can barely accept your statement. So, what did you see just now? Li Yi smiled. Originally, I thought it was because of the instructor's special physique, so he felt comfortable after being hit by me, and in fact, it's more than that, but the result is even better. Chen Kaiyongzi was confused and said, What do you mean? Be clear. In short, I found a way to use this subtle force to temper the body. Chen Kaiyongzi's eyes lit up. You mean, the way of hitting just now can increase the strength of the body? Li Yi nodded slightly and smiled. Not only that, the instructor's physique is indeed extraordinary. I think it's worth studying. In other words, without the instructor's physique, I wouldn't have discovered this so quickly. Chen Kaiyongzi frowned and said, What's the special method? Chapter 324, Creation of Law. Li Yi organized his words and said, More sensitive. A thoughtful look flashed across Chen Kaiyongzi's eyes. Sensitive? How sensitive? Li Yi was both amused and annoyed, and said, Instructor, you don't feel it. Chen Kaiyongzi blinked and said, Must you feel it? As an experienced instructor of the special selection class, she is naturally not completely ignorant of the human body. In fact, she is very familiar with the physical conditions of the initial evolvers, enough to instruct most people. But after all, she is just promoted to the heavenly position, and she doesn't know many friends in the heavenly position. Without a reference, naturally there is no way to talk about it. Li Yi was speechless, and he understood in his heart that Lao Chen probably really thought that the normal condition of his physique was a special physical characteristic of the advanced heavenly position. Or, this is indeed related to Lao Chen's past practice. It can be said that a wind god sequence superimposed on the void technique activated Chen Kaiyongzi's physique. As Li Yi's thoughts flashed in his mind, he had roughly guessed the situation. He smiled and said, Instructor, I'll have to trouble you to cooperate with me. I need to borrow your body to summarize a more complete set of bodybuilding techniques. Chen Kaiyongzi nodded slightly and agreed. Just as she was concentrating on taking Li Yi's next blow, she suddenly had an idea and asked, Wait? If you use this attack technique on yourself, wouldn't you be able to summarize a better set of bodybuilding techniques? Why do you have to ask me to cooperate? At this point, Chen Kaiyongzi narrowed her eyes, somewhat suspicious of Li Yi's actions, whether he wanted to take the opportunity to retaliate against her. Li Yi smiled and said, After all, the instructor's physique is special and is very sensitive to my subtle force. Although I can use subtle force on myself, the feedback I get is not strong enough. For example, if the average person has only about one sensitive point, The instructor has 100, or even more, with these sensitive points. The subtle force bodybuilding method I created based on this will definitely show higher accuracy and efficiency. Of course, if my subtle force can reach the micron or even nano level, it can be done by itself even through my body, but I don't know how long it will take. Chen Kaixi saw that Li Yi was so organized, so she stopped worrying about it. As for the number of sensitive points, she didn't feel much about it. Okay, let's try it. In this way, Li Yi alternated between practicing the void technique and combining it with Chen Kaix's physique to try his own subtle bodybuilding method. Time, another day and a half passed in the blink of an eye. Yes, instructor, please change your posture. I will experiment with the effects of different postures on this bodybuilding method. You need to change your breathing rhythm. It's not intense enough. I want to see the effect of boiling the blood. Yes, that's right. This posture is the most effective. I want to record it. Now instructor, please turn around. I'll try your back. Li Yi, I don't think this posture is right. It should be like this. Don't hit me from the chest. Try hitting other parts and see. What other parts? In any case, don't always hit the chest. It doesn't feel very good. It's like all the hormones in the body are stimulated. Hormone? Interesting. Let me try. AI assistant, help scan the instructor's hormone data. Why? Li Yi, in addition to posture, do you want to verify other methods? For example, how is divinity involved? No, let's do it one by one. Everyone's divinity is a little different and lacks commonality. But for now, when I understand the principle of this bodybuilding technique, I can use a mechanical structure to replicate it. Of course, this step should also be difficult, but no matter what, even if it's not as efficient as my own bodybuilding, it's definitely better than our previous gravity training method. Okay, then I'll try other postures. What do you think of this one? Hey, this one is good, instructor. You are a genius. You kid only praise me at this time. No instructor, I respect you from the bottom of my heart. Respect? If I respect you, you will think this posture is good. Okay, it's indeed a bit defensive. Instructor, you should change to a more normal one. What you did just now was indeed a bit personal. It's okay. There are only you and me here. I will admit it even if it's personal. Don't tell anyone, don't worry, instructor, I will let the AI assistant delete the record later. In this way, only God and the earth know it, and you and I know it. This is more or less good. Finally, after hard exploration and diligent attempts, the two finally came up with the initial version of the subtle bodybuilding method. Among them, Li Yi also divided the first version into two versions. The first version is the one where he attacks others and improves them. If this part is to be promoted to all mankind, a mechanical bodybuilding system needs to be designed. Considering the difficulty of micro strikes, this mechanical bodybuilding system may need to be further studied. After all, it is not enough to convert all mechanical forces into millimeter-scale propulsion tools. But with a prototype of bodybuilding techniques, I believe that this system will be designed sooner or later and promoted to all mankind to improve the overall strength of mankind. On the other hand, it is a sophisticated version in which he fights himself. Through continuous micro-level self-forging, the toughness and growth of the body can naturally be continuously improved. After that, a batch of proprietary nutrients will be tested, and the strengthening efficiency is estimated to be even higher. This version also includes various body postures and fine-tuning of the assistance of different gravity multiples, which is more surprising and the effect is more amazing. Li Yi naturally demonstrated these two versions in full in front of Chen Kaixi. After the walk, the AI assistant significantly improved the blood and key indicators, muscle tissue density and other indicators. Chen Kaixi naturally saw them all, and was amazed and a little emotional. Li Yi, do you know that you have unknowingly accomplished something that can change human history? This is a brand new method that can achieve the effect of bodybuilding without relying on any divinity. Not bad. There may be more changes in the future. Chen Kaixi was speechless. Yes, Li Yi has gradually reached this level. Although humans are still surrounded by powerful enemies, at this moment, Chen Kaixi listened to Li Yi's nonchalant words and felt that this kid was really awesome. He seemed to be glowing just standing there. Li Yi turned his head and happened to meet Chen Kaixi's focused eyes, so he smiled and said, "Of course, it is still uncertain whether this is a major event that can change human history. After all, this is only the first version, and it has only been verified on you and me. Whether it can be extended to other ordinary people, as well as the specific effect indicators, We still need to find someone to test it. What do you mean? Without further delay, let's find a few upper, middle, primary and non-evolved people to test it. Who knows, we can optimize a more efficient version. Chapter 325 Convening. Li is the type who does what he thinks. Since the first version has been released and he has come up with a new bodybuilding method that can be promoted, he naturally needs to test it as soon as possible. Immediately, he contacted Guangzi first. Captain He, are you busy? Why? I'm busy searching for Hangsuo's clone. Has Hangsuo's clone shown any trace? Almost. We have found the trace, but this guy is very cunning, frequently adjusting his position, playing hide and seek with us, even with all kinds of monitoring methods to have an overview of the overall situation. We still can't catch this guy's tail. It's different. His characteristics, or his methods are more special. After breaking the whole into pieces, he can convert the remaining body into plasma at will and hide it in our power system, like hiding a tree in a forest, which is extremely difficult to find. Such a small individual has not yet exhausted its power. Does he have a way to replenish the consumption? Most likely, after this guy is converted into plasma, he can still be exempt from the weakening effect of the god-suppressing prison. Most likely, this guy has mastered the method of replenishing consumption from the power system. It sounds really tricky. Li Yu said, do you need help? Guangzi replied, not yet. At this stage, it's useless to have more people. We must crack his hidden means to catch him. I have blocked this Henshin prison now. If an outsider comes in, he may escape. Then, Chief He, you said before that you would gather experts to discuss and solve Chief Zhang's problem. Have you made progress? Many experts have come. You don't have to worry about this. The experts haven't arrived yet. When they all come, we will hold a unified seminar. If I haven't solved Hangsuo's problem, I will trouble you to host it for me. Okay, Chief He, if you need me, please tell me at any time. However, you have to work hard on the Hangsuo matter, Chief He. Alice, the senior management is seriously short of manpower. There is no way, Guangzi muttered. I'll hang up if there's nothing else. Li Yu smiled and hung up the communicator. Old He is indeed a hard-working man. Under the same circumstances, Lu Yancheng is so relaxed and only needs to fight, while Old He has many more things to worry about. As for now, it seems that Lao He can't help test a bodybuilding method. After thinking about it, he contacted Zhao He and Lu Yancheng. Both of them happened to be free. When they heard Li Yu said that he had developed a new bodybuilding method, they were very interested and agreed readily. They will find a group of trustworthy people to come and test Li Yu's bodybuilding method together. In addition, a group of trainees with no problem of loyalty will come from the Moon Fortress. After all, his bodybuilding method has not been completely completed. If the original version is leaked by suspicious people and used to help the enemy, it will definitely not work. The initial promotion must start on a small scale. When the version has been iterated several times and verified, it is more appropriate to release the earliest version. This way, it can at least ensure that it is one version ahead of the outside world and prevent it from being borrowed and learned by cults such as the True Saint Church. Moreover, Li Yu is not sure how this bodybuilding method will work on other people, and whether there are any sequelae. Therefore, preliminary testing is also necessary. People gathered quickly. As Li Yu's status improved, people like Zhao He and Lu Yanchen, who he had difficulty meeting before, quickly gathered within 10 minutes with just a word. Not only that, many of their trusted Xian Wei came with them, such as Lin Wendong and Mu Xianlei. There were also some instructors of the special class of the Moon Fortress, some reliable trainees, etc. The overall personnel ranged from non-evolvers to upper-level evolvers. There were about 20 people in total, not too many or too few, just meeting Li Yu's requirements. At this moment, when Zhao He came to the training ground, the first person he saw was not Li Yi, but Chen Kai-ongzi beside him. Chen Kai-ongzi had naturally changed into a new set of clothes at this time. His training clothes had been broken and exposed several times by Li Yi before. This was the 6th time he changed his training clothes. Fortunately, there were many spare training clothes in the training ground, which could be generated with one click and quickly woven. Zhao He looked at Chen Kai-ongzi's appearance, and his heart was moved. No wonder he didn't seem to be attracted to Ning Fiyu when I introduced her to him before. It turns out that he likes Chen Kai-ongzi's type? Yes, she is indeed a good girl with a bright and graceful figure. She is also a 4th-level Xian Wei and a disciple of Yan. The age gap is not that big, but it can be a match. Looking at the interaction between the two, It is probably not a success yet. After all, Zhao He is one of the top powerful people with the most experience in the world. With just a glance and observation, it only took a few seconds to accurately judge the current state of the two. However, what Li Yi said at the moment was indeed extraordinary. While Zhao He was thinking about matchmaking, he did not delay other things and approached Li Yi in 2 or 3 steps. Then he said, "Can the bodybuilding method you mentioned before really achieve the effect you said?" Li Yi nodded and said, "We are going to test this now." Lu Yancheng also came over at the same time, with a complicated expression on his face. If it is really as Li Yi said, then perhaps we humans have really embarked on another path of divine evolution, because of the deliberate concealment by He Guangzi and Zhao He last time. Lu Yancheng's understanding of Li Yi has not been completely refreshed. Although he suspected that he might have made a wrong judgment, there was no solid evidence for the time being. Therefore, at this time, when Li Yi said that he had created a method that could strengthen the body without the help of divinity, he was even more shocked. No matter how talented he is, he can't do such a terrifying thing, right? This is as terrifying as a top high school student seeing a junior high school student solve a profound problem that he can't solve no matter what. Since you want testers, how about I be your first test subject? Lu Yancheng stared at Li Yi and said. Li Yi shook his head and said, "No hurry, I haven't confirmed the effect yet. Let's start with the non-evolvers first, so that the feedback and indicators can see the changes faster." As he said that, he looked around and pointed at 2 young people, 1 boy and 1 girl, who were about 16 years old. "You two, yes, the only 2 non-evolvers in the audience, come here." The 2 walked over nervously. As a new generation of young people born in the Moon Fortress, they were born with access to the virtual internet, so they naturally knew the situation in the outside world very quickly. They also naturally knew that the people in front of them were all big shots who could shock the Moon Fortress just by saying their names. The Deputy Minister of the Federation, the General of the Border Star, the first person in the Youth Mecha Master competition who explored the heritage ruins. "Hello, sir. It's a pleasure to serve you. Lin Dongwang Lan from the Moon Fortress Special Class reports here." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.